Call the April meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Marcus, would you call the roll?
Yes. Patrick Gaines. Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne.
Present.
Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Neela Crank Clements.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Ann Zacharitz. You have quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go over the procedures. First item, if you would turn off your cell phones, please. The chairman will announce each case and ask any party having an interest in the case to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will then discuss the details of the case, calling on staff to provide details of their proposals. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of the applicant, the staff, and any other interest party. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. I haven't read this before like this. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions: approve the certificate of appropriateness, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. Or 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant, and then city construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And then any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. So that's the ground rules. Katie, do you have a report?
We have a couple of events coming up that we wanted to make everyone aware of. First, the Statewide Historic Preservation Conference is going to be in Norman this year, June 4th through 6th. We do have some funds from the Certified Local Government Program to assist with commissioners' registration. So I will be circulating an email to everyone to see who would like to attend this year. They are also offering, as part of the conference, a special camp like what we had 2 years ago for commissions from across the state. It's a bargain price compared to what you would pay as a city to have them come in and do camp. So if people are interested in signing up for that, we'll check on that as well. And that event is open to the public also, and that'll be on the campus of University of Oklahoma. And that more information about that is on the State Historic Preservation Office's website. There are Plan OKC workshops currently going on in different locations around the city. You can visit planokc.gov to learn more about those. They're come and go. It's to get public input into the current writing of a new comprehensive plan for the city. So you can just come, give your feedback and your input on how you would like to see Oklahoma City grow and develop over the next 20 years at any one of those different workshop locations. We're also offering a commercial district revitalization workshop May 1st and 2nd. You can you'll be able to check our website soon or contact staff for more information about that. Preservation staff is partnering with the city's commercial district revitalization program to do workshops on revitalizing historic commercial structures. And then finally, Oklahoma City's 125th anniversary. It's the 125th anniversary of the 1889 land run on April 22nd. So there are a number of events being planned around that anniversary. Lots of them will tie in with the Arts Festival, which is at the same time. You can find out about those at okc.gov/125 or follow the events on Twitter as well. And that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Has everybody reviewed the minutes of the March meeting? Any comments, changes, motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Okay, it's been, motion been made by Neela Frank Clements and second by George Massey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. Minutes are approved. So now we go to code enforcement report. Greg?
Good afternoon. The report is before you. If you have any questions, I'll take them.
I have a question, Greg. There's a lot of zoning violations which turned out to not be violations. Is there some pattern with those?
You'd have to case by case.
Okay.
Like, give me an example of where
Well,
of an address where you have.
most of the addresses on this report are zoning violations with no violations. So, I don't know.
A lot of reports come in. I get people will turn in cases just to make sure that I look at them and see. This week I've had several on Monday that were see a big remodel going on at a location. When you get there, it's interior. Doors are open, windows open, but nothing's being changed to the exterior of the structure. Nothing for me. So it's a no violation. Or if there's a previous case that's already pending or something, we'll just close the case.
Okay, thanks.
I was waiting for the answer over on Paseo because there's a couple of blocks that are boarded up. The owner has a business plan and they've got permits and people keep turning that block in because they see all those boarded up buildings. And in my absence, I was told that there were several of those cases which were closed because they all have pending property maintenance cases. So if she falls through with what she's going to do, I'll just write tickets at that time. Yes.
Greg, if I could get you to go by and look at 2209 Northwest 26th.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of renovation work on the house, and a lot of it looks really good. I'm glad they're doing the work. And I know they got a CA a couple of months ago for some work, but I'm not sure that they might have strayed outside what their CA allowed, maybe or maybe not. But if you'd kind of go by and take a look at that and see if it lines
26th or
up.
25th?
26th.
Because I've wrote a ticket at 2209 25th and 2229 25th.
Right, yeah, and I think
Okay.
both of those are on the docket.
Now, the one you're talking about behind it, is it got the great big two-story in the back? It's like a garage apartment that's a really extensive size.
On 26th?
Yes.
It's a two-story house, and it's sort of an unusual shape. It's kind of like a T, and the leg of the T points out toward the street.
Okay. I'll go look.
Great, thanks.
Greg, I had the same question as Neela. My home was on this list today with no violation.
Oh, great.
Kind of gets your attention, when it's
Yeah.
yours. I asked you earlier, and you mentioned to talk about it now, on 20th Street in Heritage, if you could have any new information at 204 or 434. I don't know if there's any way to find out anything today.
204, nothing. And I drove by there when I got back, and it's still sitting as it's always been. And the last action I've taken is I wrote a citation. The owner who still is a legal owner has given the property back to the mortgage company.
That's 204, right?
Yes, but All County Documents doesn't show that they've updated their records. So I'm still issuing citations to her until a responsible party comes forth. And if she wants to give me that information, I'll take it. And now I've started sending them to her where she's at. Because all the addresses, mailing addresses go back to that location, but I know where she's at, so I'm sending them there. So
Because the Heritage Hills Real Estate Committee's meeting tonight, I believe, so I will let them know that
Yeah.
it's still in progress. Thank you.
And the other one, 434?
434.
Yeah, the last action I've taken, it was the property was cleaned.
In the
Because-
backyard, there's
Yes.
been progress there, right?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a hoarder, and they had tons of stuff in the back. And that's all the city can do abating-wise to it.
For now.
The structure, I have no information of the second owner on his locating. We did all the search we can through water records, et cetera. We have no way of finding out who or how to get a hold of him. And if anybody else had any luck, I hope so.
Okay.
Purchase it. That's it.
Okay. Greg, thank you. Okay. Item 5, continuance announcements and requests.
We have two requests for continuance. The first one has asked to be continued to June, and the second one has asked to be continued to May. So we need to do a separate action for each of those.
Okay, say it again. Sorry.
The first continuance request at 704 Northwest 42nd is to be continued to June, the June meeting, and the June 4th meeting. And the second continuance request for 124 Northwest 15th is to the May 7th meeting.
Okay.
Then I make a motion to continue HPCA 13-00197 to the June 4th meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been excuse me, moved by Heather Clemmer and seconded by Jeff Parker to move item HPCA 13-00197 to the June 4th meeting. Continue, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next.
We just gave Jeff a new name.
I didn't hear you.
You gave Jeff a new name.
Last name is Parks, actually.
What did I say?
Parker.
Parker.
Which there is an
Parks, excuse me.
architect named Jeff Parker here in the city,
Okay.
but that's not me. But that's fine. I move to continue HPCA 13-14-001-00015 to the May 7th docket.
Second.
Okay, Jeff Parks.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Heather Clemmer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Someone called Jennifer Jason Bourne. I've been thinking that all day. Yeah, you really? All right. Public hearings.
Under dilapidated structures, we have one for HPCA 14-00037 at 315 Northwest 25th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of City of Oklahoma City Development Services Department owned by Mark Godding Revocable Trust to receive Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding garage structure only in the process of being declared dilapidated as initiated by City of Oklahoma City Development Services Code Enforcement pertaining to properties that contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district and to the effect of proposed demolition of the structure on the historic character of the property and district. And just explanation with the dilapidated process is that these are properties in the dilapidated process are going through a city review, and the commission does not have the responsibility to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition. We just provide comment on the effect of the proposed demolition on the historic character.
Okay. Any comments on that? National Register nominations done. Consent docket cases.
We have to make a recommendation on
we
the
do have to,
dilapidated
okay.
structure. Yes, sorry.
I'm filling in today. So is there a motion?
Staff has looked at Sanborn maps for this site, and it looks like the structure has been altered considerably over the years and has changed shape many times. So the recommendation was that the structure did not retain historic integrity, but the commission can decide to forward whatever comments you choose.
Any comments?
I agree with the staff recommendation. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Okay. I move that we forward the following comments. The structure retains no historic integrity and does not contribute to the historic integrity of the district. And as a non-contributing resource to the historic district, demolition of the structure will have no adverse effect on the historic character of the district. And this is HPCA 14-00037.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Neela Crank Clements and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It's been approved. Now National Register nominations. Let's try to move it along.
No National Register nominations. We have two items on the consent docket. The commission can choose to pull one of those if they wish to discuss it, or those can be approved as part of the consent docket.
Anybody like to pull one of those? Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent docket item numbers 1 and 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm doing all the motions right now. Okay, this has been also moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent docket is approved. And now, D, cases for individual consideration, Jeff.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move item number 5 to the front of this part of the docket.
Do we have to vote on that? Okay. All right. Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Neela Clements to move item 5 to the top of the items for individual consideration. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item 5.
Before we start on this, just to let people in the audience know, if you were here for one of the two items on the consent docket, those are approved. There won't be any further discussion of those two items, and you're free to leave. You'll get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail. Item number 5, HPCA 14-00023 at 701 Northwest 26th Street, Paseo, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Nedra Jones for certificate of appropriateness to 3, install 6-foot-tall chain link fence, elective.
Okay, the applicant here, Edra. Hello?
Sign in.
Sign in, please. Any comments?
Staff recommends additional information. Is this to see if the applicant can provide proof that there was a 6-foot-tall fence here before?
Now, I'm sorry, what's your question, dear?
I'm asking staff.
There is currently a 6-foot-tall fence in this photograph at the adjacent property. Staff has recommended a continuance in order for the applicant to install a fence that we can administratively approve, but you're welcome to discuss the option for the 6-foot-tall fence.
So there's already a 6-foot-tall fence on the west side of the property? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. There's chain link fence all the way around the property, and it's been there a good long time because the sign that the fence company put up has a Windsor Exchange on their phone number, so that's in the 50s. Shall I talk, or do you have questions? If I'd known staff was going to put my sketch in there, I'd have done a better sketch. I'm sorry. Where I want to put it is just from the corner of the garage to the corner of the apartment, 6 foot, so I can create a dog run. And approximate distance from the curb at Lee to the fence, to the back fence is 69 feet. I'll be taking up 13, which will run along the western border of my property.
I guess the only thing I'm looking at, Nedra, is in the guidelines, 2.8.14 says that the fence shall not exceed 4 feet in height unless there is historical, physical, or photographic evidence that there was something of that height before.
There wasn't. No, there wasn't. This would have to be an exception. It's my understanding I could put a stockade fence there. Is that correct? A wooden fence?
I don't know, staff?
Yes, we could administratively approve a 6-foot-high wood fence.
That's what I understood. But I don't want a wooden fence there. That's the issue. And a 4-foot fence, chain link fence, would not keep the dog. A dog has come into my life. She jerked me down and caused a compression fracture in my back.
Oh, that's
She
fun.
head-butted me and almost broke my nose. And people say, why don't you get rid of her? And it's kind of like your kids. I'm in too deep, you know. So I would like to have this fence here so that she would have a run back and forth here. I would put up a stockade if I had to, but I don't think it would look good at all. So I don't know what exception you can make. Of course, you know I have been on the commission before, And I was trying to think to myself, what would I do if I was on the commission? But I'm entirely too biased to make any kind of a decision. So if y'all could come up with something or tell me what you think I should do.
Actually, we're hard to run ex-commissioners.
Okay. That's what I told everybody. They said, well, you were on the commission. Do you know when y'all had your first vote, I sat back there and said aye? It's hard to let go. I have several options, to ask if I could put a temporary fence up there for 60 days. I'm getting ready to have knee surgery, and the kind you put in with metal posts. I just need somewhere I can let that dog out, and I can do it on a walker. I know this is really pulling at your heartstrings, but I'm trying to get to where I can get her out to exercise. But I would put up a wood stockade if I had to.
So why is it that a 6-foot wood stockade fence would be allowed, but a 6-foot chain link fence would not?
This is for.
Would not be allowed.
That's, as I understand it, what the guidelines have said for a very long time. I think the intent was to not, people generally think a wood fence looks nicer. So to have lower chain link was acceptable, but when you get above that 4 foot, it starts to have a different character to it.
And the fence that goes around the property now is House Hall?
The fence around all of the property except the west.
Yes.
The west is 6 feet.
Okay.
And everybody's fence down the alley is 6 feet. So that's what was there
Right.
a long time ago.
Right.
The rest of the property is 4 foot all the way around.
Right.
And this would really serve two purposes for me, because people, the dirt has built up so many times, people doing the yard, to where it's really only about 3 feet, and people step over it and come in the yard. But if there was a chain link fence between these two properties here and Ripley, that's the dog's name, was out there, I doubt seriously they'd go any further. You don't want to mess with Ripley. So the other thing I want to ask, and I don't know if this is a part of it, I have planted photintillas on the outside of the 4-foot fence on the lee side, and they have doubled since last year, and they will double again this year. You will not be able to see this fence by the end of the summer, is my thinking. Will that make any difference? That you couldn't see it is what I'm talking about. If it's visible, my understanding is it's visible from the street, and it's hardly visible if you were standing at the curb. You can't see through the shrubs much.
Excuse me, Andrew. Isn't there a rule about things 6 feet and below in a backyard that comes into play?
There is a provision for there's a rule for no CA required for landscape elements that are under 6 feet in height in the backyard, not visible from view. But because this is on the corner with a chain link fence. So if there was a wood fence all the way around, then we wouldn't care if she put another fence on the inside. But because it's chain link on the corner and side, that doesn't apply.
Did anybody drive by and look? Did they see from Lee and look in there? Well, I know you would. You're over there.
I guess what I struggle with is the guidelines say the fence shall not exceed 4 feet in height, which means we'd have to make a special exception, and I don't know what that would be.
We're looking for that, right?
I just don't think there is, I don't think there is one, which is why the guidelines read as they do, unless we change the guidelines.
Katie, just a point, if this were unique circumstances for topography or elevation, could that 4 feet be adjusted because of unique circumstances, like a wood fence?
The commission has certainly approved fences that exceeded the height allowed in the guidelines because of a change in topography from one yard to another, as well as other factors.
So that could be the same here. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah.
You're searching. I'm searching. Your motion? Andrew, would you be willing to do a wood fence?
If I had to.
If you had to?
But I'll pout, but I'll do it.
And we could administratively approve a wood fence. So if the commission wants to continue it, then staff can continue to work with the applicant on either doing a wood fence or if there are any other alternatives we can come up with.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with an exception, and I can't do it. I can't come up with one.
Yeah.
So, as much as I hate that. So I would move to continue this item if the applicant would be willing to work with staff on a solution.
The only way I'd want to continue it if the shrubbery was high enough to hide it, and I didn't, the looks I got from the commission's face like it, that wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah, we can't consider that.
To do that, so, okay. So it doesn't matter what I had up there, you still don't want that 6-foot fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would move to continue HPCA 14-00023 to the March, or to the May docket.
May 7th.
Okay, what I want done can be approved by staff, so
Yes.
I don't actually have to come.
Correct. That's correct.
Because I will be incapacitated at the time. Okay.
That's true.
Thank you. We tried, didn't we? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been so moved by Jeff Parks. God, I'm going to do it every time. And seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's been continued. Next item.
Can we get a motion to go back to the beginning of the agenda?
Go back to the regular order.
Yes, I would move to return to the regular order of the docket.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to take George.
I'm safer.
Yeah, you're closer. Yeah. It's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by George Massey to go back to the regular order. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We're back.
HPCA 13-00104 at 134 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Caleb McCaleb by David Knox for certificate of appropriateness to 1 install retaining wall required. This is a new construction project the Commission approved several months ago. As they started on construction, they realized that with the slope from the neighboring property to theirs, they needed to install a retaining wall. It does come forward of the point where we can administratively approve a retaining wall. So this is before the Commission today.
Is the applicant here? Welcome.
Hi, I'm David Knox, here for McCaleb Homes.
Any comments? Commissioners?
So it comes forward, not because there's like air conditioning units sitting at that location, but it comes forward just to help the topography transition from one lot to the next. Is that
Exactly.
what's going on?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
David, when did it seem apparent that the retaining wall was necessary?
Well, when the space in between the two houses is so tight, it's about 5 feet, that 2 AC compressors needed to go in, as well as the utilities for natural gas and electric. So once that ground was broken and to install the utilities, that's when the slope is thus that it was.
I drove by, it really drops there.
Yeah. And really, there was no way to get the compressors in there without taking it out a little bit.
Mr. Knox, does the proposed retaining wall exceed the height of the slope it retains?
It is, no, it's almost the same. It's 2 feet, 24 inches, a little bit above on the cap. So it goes slightly above the.
Slightly, as in a couple of inches, or
Yeah.
6 inches, or?
I'd say a couple of inches. We kind of stopped halfway through because.
Excuse me, sir, did you sign in? I didn't.
I sure did, yeah.
Okay, good.
There's actually a photograph in what we received that shows the retaining wall much higher than maybe an inch above. Yes, that one.
Well, actually, those are just stacked up there temporarily.
Oh.
Yeah. If you see,
Thank you.
okay, see the back? It's just the 2 blocks in the back. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There will be a cap on the top of the 2 that you see.
Is that how far forward?
Excuse me?
Is the picture that we're seeing right now, is that how far forward the retaining wall
Exactly.
goes? It's not going to go further forward than that.
Exactly. If you see on the left, that's the front porch. It's not quite finished, so it's a few feet beyond that.
Okay.
And then it tapers off. Same with the back as well.
Katie, I have a question. You've recommended approval with the condition that the proposed retaining wall be designed by a qualified professional engineer to specifications sufficient to stabilize the abutting property to the east. How do we monitor that? Do they have to bring a document to you to say that they spoke with an engineer?
There should be drawings. There should be drawings, correct?
Yeah, I think we'll want to make sure that we have accurate drawings of how it's being constructed, and then it'll also just be part of when they go through, any other permitting.
The building permit will require a retaining wall design.
And that really, I think there are other steps along the way in place that are going to ensure that. That was just to really emphasize that it's important that that not only the new construction be considered with this, but its effect on the neighboring historic property.
And the applicant's okay with that condition?
Yes,
Great.
they are.
Okay.
You can do the motion.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of these type of blocks, but the commission has approved them in the past, so I'm ready to approve HPCA 13-00104, item number 5, to install a retaining wall with the following condition with specific findings that the proposed work with the agreed upon condition will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property. The items comply with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in section D of the staff report. The condition being that the proposed retaining wall will be designed by a qualified professional engineer to specifications sufficient to stabilize the abutting property to the east.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Jeffrey Parker and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank
Approved.
you. Appreciate it.
Next item.
HPCA 13-00194 at 529 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of J. Krupp by Sam Gresham for certificate of appropriateness to 1. Construct house elective, 2. Replace sidewalk elective, 3. Install curved walkway elective, and 4. Relocate and widen driveway elective.
Sam Gresham here to represent the owner, and I have some exhibits I'd like to pass out.
While he's passing those out, I'll just refresh everyone's memory that we've seen this 2 times before. At the last meeting, there was a suggestion that possibly they consider making what had been proposed as a 1.5-story look more like a true 2-story house. And so it was continued to this meeting.
Thank you. We'll share over here. Okay. Any discussion from the commission?
Sam Gresham, I think I said that, didn't I?
Welcome.
Our discussion with well, you know the history of this application. It started out with the Planning Commission approval for a split lot, the lot's small. We brought it to you as an elevation with a diagonal front. No one liked it, so we changed it to a straight-on front. At that meeting, Alan Brown said that he would like to see it taller. We did that. Jeffrey Parks said a smaller window in the front. We did that. Of course, the angle front's gone. I talked to Katie. We added a window on the north side, which she thought was an appropriate addition. Did a straight sidewalk, as Mila had asked us to do. I did, in fact, as Ms. Bourne had said, separate the windows on the west facade. All these things were things that had been recommended in the first meeting, the first hearing here. Our purpose was, to try to address all those, and we felt that after doing all that, that we were close to satisfying what we thought you, as a commission, felt was an appropriate design for that lot. We have now, I guess, been told I didn't attend the previous commission hearing, nor the deadline for the submission for revisions, because I was out of town or gone in general for quite a number of weeks. But our purpose was to try to address, as I said, every concern that we were aware of and were being told by you and by staff that we needed to address. I have submitted an alternative elevation which shows less roof, as Katie said was her concern with the previous design. I essentially flipped the gable around and let that second floor show up on the front of the house. The staff report goes through a number of items which I've addressed with a board here. You can show it. Staff report says that this house is significantly taller than houses surrounding it. Significantly is a judgment word. It's a subjective word. I mean, it's 6 feet taller than the house next door. I'm 6 feet tall. I mean, it's that much taller. The houses, they have it. Anyway, the houses across the street, the one across the street, directly across the street, is 24 feet. It's about a foot taller. That's to the soffit, to the underside of the overhang. The house directly west of this one, it's across the street, is 28 feet to the peak of the ridge, 28 feet. That's 5 feet taller than this house is. The illustration, I'm going to have a hard time showing you this, but this is an illustration here, if you can see it, of the proportionate size. I don't know if you can see it at that distance, but it shows the proportionate size of the proposed structure. The ridge height is the same as that example that I provided you as my current exhibit for the house, as well as the original submission. The difference is, as I said, it's 6 feet. On that same block, if we look down to the east end, that house is 28 feet to the ridge. It's 5 feet taller than our house on the same block. The concern that it is significantly taller, it's a relative term. Devon Tower is significantly taller. I mean, it's a relatively judgmental term. So as a means of addressing that concern, which seemed to be the primary one, I have provided the new elevation. So I'm asking you to accept that elevation as a submission from the floor, modifying the plan submission that we have made. I did talk to staff about that. They said you guys have the authority to accept an alternative plan.
Thanks, Sam. Any comments?
I will just note, I haven't, other than what Sam handed me just before this meeting, which I haven't looked at, I haven't seen the new elevation other than just then. The commission has the capability to agree to changes as part of discussion with the applicant when they come before you, but there's also the determination of how comfortable you are with the scope of the changes. They are out of continuances, so if the changes are above and beyond what the commission's comfortable accepting without having had the opportunity to review it or without staff having the opportunity to review it, you don't have the ability to continue it right now. But you're free to look at what's been shown to you and see what everyone's comfort level is with that.
The details of what I propose have been suggested to me by this commission and staff. I addressed concerns. It may not be that you said specifically to do this, but it is an effort to try to accommodate each of those requirements, those suggestions made by you. Overall, I have tried to incorporate every one of them in an effort to try to, get approval, win your approval for this project.
Nilo, it's your district.
Sam loves me, right? I agree with staff. I still have a problem with the attached garage. And if you look at 4.4.3, the proposed attached garage does not follow historic setback for a garage on the property or setback patterns of other garages in the streetscape or historic district. I understand there's a challenge with the lot size. I don't think that necessitates an attached garage or even a garage at all. Maybe it's a situation where it only is the house.
I have to dispute that only because one of the things I despise the most about most of these neighborhoods is parking on the street. And when there's no accommodation for parking, the street is full of cars. I live on 18th Street. It is a yield street most of the time. During the day, during the weekend, if someone is coming in from the other end, you have to stop or pull over and wait for that car to come the complete block before you can go down that street. I think that's it's a big concern.
But that's the inner city, not the suburbs, right? I mean,
this
that's
is the
what
same
we live
neighborhood.
with.
We're in a historic district
Right,
with the same
right.
density. We have no difference here.
Right.
I'm saying that we are dealing with the same on-street versus off-street parking. And I think accommodation of off-street parking is a critical part of making a neighborhood work and making it pleasant. I am always opposed to seeing cars parked on the street. I don't have a way to stop it, but if we do in this design accommodate that feature that allows a car to be off the street, I think we've addressed it to a degree.
So there's still a driveway that's proposed, and it looks like there'd be room for 3 cars there?
Oh, including the garage, yes. It's a 4-bedroom house.
Mm-hmm. So there is room for off-street parking without
Yes.
the garage to accommodate maybe up to 3 cars?
Well, yes, you could do that.
Right, okay.
I would also suggest that people have a lot of stuff, that they hang on the wall, bikes hang up. It's storage is a part of a garage's function. So,
Anybody else?
Sam, I think, the commission has provided a lot of comments on this house, and I think a lot of it was a general struggle to try and make this feel like it fits into the neighborhood better. And I think toward the end of our last conversation, last time this was before us, it sort of came down to the idea that this house is doing, especially the roof line of this house, is doing a lot of gymnastics to accommodate spaces and to try and pretend like it's a 1-story house, but it's really a 2-story house. And, it's not uncommon for additions in our historic neighborhoods to have unusual roof lines, particularly in the back. The unfortunate thing is this is a corner lot. And so what's going on with that roof is very evident. And once you turn that corner, it feels not very historic, I think, is a lot of what our general pushback is against this. And I think we tried to accommodate that by suggesting alterations to details. And having seen those alterations, some of them were good things that happened overall, but there's still the overall overarching thought that there's some really weird things going on with this house to fit into
that is a harsh thing to say.
I'm sorry, I just got to lay it out there, though.
Come on. I have to disagree again. I see multiple gables on the house next door. There's 3 gables on the face of that house. There are 3 gables on the face of this house. The side view may be an alternate, combination that you see that is unavoidable on a corner lot. But I'm...
And I don't deny that particularly the later iteration, I don't know about the one today, having just seen it, I think I would need to study that more. But the one that was in the packet, when you look at that elevation straight on, and as you've shown, the elevation of this house next to all the others along the street, I agree. I think it does fit in generally. I'm not all that concerned with the added height. It doesn't feel particularly out of place to me. But once you turn the corner and look at this house diagonally across the intersection, as you will, because it sits on a corner, then that sort of chopped off, truncated back elevation starts to really come into play, and it feels not like it goes in the neighborhood. At least that's what it feels like to me, and I think that was some of the response from the commission at the last meeting. Others can speak to or against that. But.
I agree with you, Jeffrey.
Can you explain the set of drawings that you handed us just now? Because obviously this is a little bit different
Yes.
than what was in our packet. Could you explain why you brought that today?
Katie responded to my the previous drawing. I tried to keep the one-story buried under the roof. She thought it was too much roof. The roof was too expansive. So I rotated the front gable completely around so that all you see looking at the front is basically a gable that matches what's next door. Because that's 3 gables on the front of that house. This house, obviously, 6 feet taller, has more wall surface exposed to the street. But it is 3 gables that stack up, forming the front of the house, and really removing what was previously the objection that Katie had expressed of seeing so much roof and in the front elevation. Same is true on the side. And again, Jeffrey, I know you feel like this is not right, but when you go around the side, that it reduces that volume of roof as well. In either direction, it's not unusual in terms of what that style includes. I think keeping it minimized in height was a good choice. But you see too much going on is what you're expressing.
You know, there's a lot of simplicity to a lot of these houses. It's very charming. And you know, if this is really a 2-story house, then maybe it should be a 2-story house, I think is a comment that I heard at the last meeting.
But right up against the 1-story next door, I mean, I guess it could be. I thought to mitigate that somewhat. But in terms of its position on the block, I mean, this illustration is that house. I mean, I unfortunately don't have other than this to show you, but it's that straight line. Of course, how easily it's easy to see. But,
That's the same with the enlargement that we have before us right here. Is that true?
Yes.
oh, yeah, that's right.
Great. Okay.
Sam, I will preface this by saying I'm the least qualified to talk about this with 3 excellent architects and Neela, who works in new construction in the areas. I don't have any trouble with this house. I mean, I think I've seen other homes, newer homes, especially in Heritage Hills East, that I think this fits the scope of what was approved in those. And I honestly don't have a problem with this house.
Anybody else? Is there a motion? Nope. Oh, I'm sorry.
Before she begins, I want to make a point. I'm sorry, but this is a point regarding people who speak. She does not live in that neighborhood, and she's speaking as a private citizen, as an individual. She doesn't express the views of the neighborhood, so to speak.
Okay.
It's important.
Well, let me correct Sam. We do own the property across the street. So.
Sorry,
I'm Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel. And I think I was the one that said I would rather it look like a 2-story house if it's going to be a 2-story house than a 1-story house that is a 2-story house. And I understand they're out of continuances, but as someone who is a vested participant in this, I don't even know what they've given to you today. So it does bother me that we haven't even had a chance to look at it. Thank you.
Yes, Simon.
I have a lot of sympathy for them and know that the applicant has worked really hard to try to make the changes as requested by the commission, but I don't have a lot of comfort with approving a drawing that was just handed to you 5 minutes ago that you have not had time to look at, staff hasn't had time to look at. We don't know if there are other changes to the footprint of the building, to the site plan.
Is there a legal ramification dealing with public record since the packets were all provided to the public ahead of time, and here's something that's come to us today that, as she said, people haven't had a chance to speak into, whether it's property owners around you or the neighborhood itself. No one has seen this but us, and we're sharing copies.
It will be a part of the official record of this case. Katie will have it to put in the file, and so it will be available to the public.
Seems like we get additional information all the time.
And there is a 10-day waiting period, right, Katie? Is that right, before the CA is issued?
There is an appeal period. And we do frequently accept new information, whether in the form of a verbal explanation or description of something, or whether it's additional documentation of some kind from the applicants. We don't usually accept completely revised drawings for new construction
Well,
at the meeting.
I have to say this isn't completely revised, but
No, it's not. You're right. But there's definitely, it's not just well, we made this window bigger.
so what are the options if you are to continuances? We have to vote on it, up or down, right? And there are options if it's denied.
I mean, it could be denied without prejudice, and they would have to turn around and apply again, and could turn around and come right back.
So if they
with
did that, they could
revised drawings.
They could come back. I don't know what it would be. Don't know what we could do about the garage because it's it's needed. But they could come back with a true two-story house, as one of the citizens mentioned. Anyhow, what do you guys?
Well, I would point out the footprint didn't change. The plan didn't change, just the elevation, nothing else.
Anybody?
Well, I would move to deny without prejudice. HPC 813-00194, with the specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, is not consistent with the provisions of the guidelines, and is not in compliance with the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in the specific findings in Section D of the staff report. I would like to edit one of the findings, however. Page 10 of the staff report, subsection D. I would like to remove specific finding number 5. I'd like to omit that one and add another finding that the proposed attached garage, let me find the, does not follow the historic setback for a garage on the property or setback patterns of other garages in the streetscape or historic district.
Second.
Okay. It's been so moved by Neela Crank-Clements and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. Any comments? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. It's been denied. Okay, next item.
HPCA 14-00010 at 216 Northwest 16th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of David and Robin Rush by Derek Bird of Gummerson and Associates for certificate of appropriateness to construct garage elective. This application was before us recently, and the demolition of a garage has already been approved, and now they have their proposal to construct a new garage in its place. And the Commission did see virtually identical application to this several months ago, and this is a new application. So it's a new HPCA number, but pretty much all of the design elements are the same.
So, my name is Bill Gummerson, 4019 North Classen Boulevard. I'm representing Robin and David Rush, the owners, and I have with me Derek Bird from my office. If I might, when we were here in front of this commission several months ago, there was discussion as to the elevation of the garage and a concern about the formality and that we were using elements of the house that basically gave a characteristic of it being more important than a garage should be, that a garage should be secondary. Since that time has occurred, not only did we listen to the staff input, but we have visited with Marva Ellard, who represents the Heritage Hills. I guess association has a committee in reference to review of these. And after visiting with Marva and going over our proposed plans, it was the concession and agreement with the owners that we would not only delete the dormers, but we would in fact delete the balconies. And from their perspective, as I understand it, this has alleviated that situation. Okay? And so you have before you a drawing that simply shows the balconies being deleted, and that we have a 2 foot, yes, Okay? So, and then you also have a photograph of the house showing the formality in terms of the columns, not only on the upper porch, but you see the columns on the little porch overhang as you walk into the entry foyer. In addition, there's a number of decorative iron elements on the house, and none of which are we including in reference to the garage. So, having said that, we feel as if we've responded in full fashion in reference to that. What you have before you now is a two-story structure that has in fact been moved back 3 feet from the existing garage line that currently is there. This helps resolve the visual impact, which is currently almost non-existent from 16th Street. When you drive down 16th Street and look to your right as you're traveling east, and there is on page 2 of our submittal, the bottom photograph will show you a shot looking up the driveway. And where you're seeing there, you're standing at the back line of the house. Here you're standing in the driveway on the private property of the Rushes, but you can see that you pick up about a third of the garage, if that elevation. You don't see the roof. The magnolia tree maintains its vegetation year-round. So by moving the garage structure back 3 feet, we are not only eliminating or negating the concern of the impact from the street, but we're also increasing the protection of one of the largest old-growth magnolia trees in Heritage Hills. In addition, I would share with you that the garage footprint is in fact 7 foot 6 inches in depth bigger than the existing footprint of the original garage. And this is to accommodate today's vehicles. We do not have enough depth in this garage to park a Suburban or a longer SUV and to accommodate storage. And I would also mention that this property backs up to the south against St. Luke's parking lot. So we have no residents looking into this yard from that particular area. There is a residence on the west side at the back, but it is not greatly impacted in terms of what we're dealing with from this perspective. We believe that this project in the proposed configuration is consistent with the design criteria of the HP Commission, its guidelines, as well as the neighborhood. And then I would state, in addition, there are numerous examples in Heritage Hills where one-story garages have been demolished and two-story structures have been used to replace those. And some of them, in fact, quite a few of the existing, as well as a number of those that have been rebuilt, are similar in terms of impact, scale, height, square footage that we're contending with this one. So if you would, in fact, refer to the staff report, page 5 of 6, and under paragraph D, recommended specific findings, I would just like to share with you that, number one, currently 64% of the garages in the immediate neighborhood are, in fact, two-story, many of which have similar mass and scale. Number two, the building materials are compatible with the existing primary structures and meet, from our standpoint, all of the relative guidelines. Three, there's no question in our mind that Preston has been well established for the changing of footprints, the construction of two-story garages where one-story garages previously existed. And fourth, but not the least, the design is now definitely secondary to the primary structure with the elimination of columns, balconies, dormers, etc. So we are here to answer any questions that you all might have in reference to this project, plain and simple. I do have some additional photographs and information to pass out showing other two-story garages that have been built throughout the neighborhood, but if it's not necessary, I'll hold on to those.
So we've previously approved the demolition.
We've already approved the demolition. I was going to ask a question because we've seen several different versions of the design prior to this one. And we'll have it in the file anyway, but I'll just ask you guys before digging for that. When you submitted this one in March, wasn't the initial design without the balconies? And then we continued
We actually had two proposals at that juncture, one without and one with, Katie, so it's very possible you have both in the files.
Yeah, I was going to say, since we've been addressing the issue of how much new documentation are we comfortable with. We have previously seen and reviewed this design minus the balconies, minus the French doors. So even though that wasn't in this packet, we've had it before us and staff has had it before them. So.
And what we've done, we have found an acceptable manufacturer. Basically, those doors look like, or the windows look like 6/1. They are in fact casement windows that can be opened up with a 2-foot sill height, thereby giving the owner everything that he really needed without having to do the balconies.
Bill, I have a question. You said
Yes.
that 64% of the existing garages
In the immediate neighborhood,
are two-story.
yes, ma'am.
Do you have statistics on how many of those garages were originally one-story?
I have some information in reference to that. What we might do, Derek, let's go. Do you have that specific response, or should we send out?
With Derek Bird, Gummerson and Associates. With the Exhibit A, there's a copy of the I believe it's 1922 Sanborn maps, and it shows the existing, what was one-story and has been replaced with two-story on that street.
And to help answer that question, I'm not sure that fully does. I'm not sure that fully responds to your question, so I think what I might do is to give you some more volume in terms of photographs that we can walk through. We actually drove the entire neighborhood, and we looked at a number of garages that were one-story, and we have the previous one-story photographs along with the garages that are currently existing there. And it may be, Eric, could I have a copy of that too? And I don't intend to, when we make reference to these photographs, I have not looked at the CAs in reference to these, and I've communicated with Katie on some. The first photograph you have under Exhibit B is 219 Northwest 16th Street, and identified as photograph number 1, and it shows a structure directly across the street from the Rushes. And as I understand it, there was originally a dormer on this, and this was in essence a 1.5-story garage that had a dormer. It was significantly altered and increased in footprint, and has just been completed. Dave, am I correct in that? Has just been completed. The construction of it they were working on the gate. You see someone working on the gate last week. This was increased in size and scale, and is now basically has the volume and the scale of a 2-story structure. The photograph number 2 is shown from the front of that same house, showing the roof line, and just barely above the basketball goal, you can see a dormer. Okay? And I think this is worth walking through. The next photograph, number 3, is 1530 Classen Drive. And photograph 3 shows what is currently existing. This was the project that we designed. And photograph number 4 shows the original garage structure that was. Okay.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think I'll allow you all to thumb through these then.
Very thorough.
Just know that there are a whole bunch of them that have been done.
I appreciate very much the changes that you made.
Pardon, Jennifer?
I appreciate very much the changes that you made
Oh,
in regards
thank you.
to the, simplifying it, the windows changing to similar to the house, and taking off the balconies. I mean, again, it was a great design, but for that area, for a brand new building, that would be
right.
I do appreciate the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Unless there's something else you want to point out, Bill, I think we have a lot of information here. What do you guys think?
I just have a question, Bill. When you said mentioning the garage was moved 3 feet
to the rear, to the south,
to the rear, to south,
away from the front house, the main structure, and the purpose of that was to negate the visual impact,
visibility from 16,
and well, we have an extremely significant tree there that's really important to their backyard.
Glad you're saving that. Is there a motion or any more questions?
And so I guess one last question from me. The the north elevation that you've presented revised today that's simplified is what we would like.
Absolutely. That's what we propose to create.
Great. But the west, east, and south elevations that are in the packet would remain
Would suffice.
as they
That's
are.
correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Right. I'm ready to make a motion unless there are other questions. Okay, great. I move approval of HPCA 14-00010 with the specific findings that the two-story garages are present at adjoining properties, that the proposed materials are compatible with the existing primary structure and meet all relevant guidelines, and the proposed garage approximates the original footprint, style, and placement of the historic garage, and that the proposed garage is clearly secondary to the primary historic structure, relevant with all of the municipal, all sections of the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010, and as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
Do you want to add a condition that that elevation changes?
The condition is that the correct elevation that will be constructed is the north elevation as presented in the exhibits submitted at the meeting today.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A.
Second.
Okay. And so moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
We thank the commission very much.
Katie, did you note that the HPCA number is correct at the top, but on the staff recommendation under E, that it's not the correct number? Just so that we get the right
we'll
number.
make sure that's
Okay.
accurate. Thank you.
Good catch.
Chairman Brown, I need to abstain from voting on the next case.
5.
HPCA 14-00012 at 921 Northwest 16th Street, Nesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Greg McAllister for certificate of appropriateness to 2, construct house elective, 3, construct garage elective, 4, install sidewalks elective, 5, install driveway elective, 6, install gate elective, and 7, install fence elective. And the commission has reviewed this application previously, made a number of comments about some things to revise on the proposed new construction. The applicant has worked with staff to get those revisions made, and we have recommended approval at this time.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a quorum? I don't believe we do.
5's a quorum, yes. Welcome
We don't.
back.
We only have 4.
Greg McAllister, owner.
We have 5.
And there's 4 of us. Can you?
Oh,
I can vote.
he counts
Okay.
for purposes of the quorum.
All right.
And then you just need a majority of the quorum to approve or deny.
Okay. Would you like to point out what's changed?
So I think, oops. Let me get situated here.
Looks like the back.
We gabled we had gable on the front and hip on the back. And so based on the comments, we gabled both ends of the garage, both ends of the house. The front porch, a few comments were made on the front porch about the door heights not lining up with the window heights. So we added the transom, as was discussed, to line up those. Some other points were to open up the front porch some. So we actually widened the steps to give it a wider, I think it's 8 foot actually now. I think the report said 6, but I think it's 8 foot on the site plan that the steps are. And then deleting some of those interior columns, so you mainly just have the corner columns now to open the front porch.
Did you lower the wall around the front of the porch?
No.
Same? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. It just, like I said, I think with those other columns not there, it gave it a different appearance now, and it doesn't appear to be as tall as it did before. And we simplified the garage a little bit too. There was a little gable and a window and door on the front of the garage before, where now just the door is on there, no gable, and the windows on the side to simplify it.
As with the last case, I appreciate very much your revisions that you made. I think it reads easier. So
Thank you.
I appreciate that very much.
No problem.
Weren't there also adjustments made to some of the window heights on maybe the side elevations or something too?
Yes, I think there was most of them did line up, but I think there was one or two that didn't that we made adjustments to get those to line up.
Yeah, I think the overall form and scale and shape fits nicely in the district.
So, is that a motion?
So, ... Let me flip to my page. I would move approval of HPCA 14-00012, items 2 through 7, with the specific finding that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant sections, guidelines, and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been so moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You're approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
HPCA 14-00023 at 701 Northwest. Oh, we already did that one.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Item 6.
Number 6, HPCA 14-00029 at 434 Northwest 27th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of John Roddick by Christy Smith for certificate of appropriateness to 8 replace front door required.
Sir, are you the applicant? No? No. The applicant here? Any comments?
And the staff felt that the door did not meet guidelines for replacement of a front door and recommended continuance. We do have the ability to administratively approve some front door replacements. So since there's no one present, if the commission wanted to continue it, staff could continue to work with the applicant on finding an appropriate replacement.
To when should it be continued?
I would say since they are not here and since it's a relatively quick turnaround, maybe do the June, what's the, 4th meeting?
I'd move to continue HPCA 14-00029 to the June 4th docket.
Second.
Okay. So moved by Jeffrey Parks and second by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Continued. Okay, 7.
I will note that number 7 and number 8 are properties that are next door to each other, and it's the same applicant, so we'll act on each one separately, but the cases are very similar. Number 7, HPCA 14-00031 at 125 Northwest 27th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Roger Swart for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace composition roof with metal roof required.
Sir, you're the applicant?
Yes.
Can you sign in, please?
Already did.
Sorry about that.
Okay. I come before you today to let you know what you guys are doing up here is just fantastic. It amazes me.
We don't get that very often, thank you.
Well, it's been 22 years since I've stood before this commission, and that's when Jefferson Park became a historic neighborhood, and I had my input that day, and I guess I'm back again, part of the history of this deal. The roofs that I replaced is much like what I feel is going on in the rest of the neighborhood. It had become very old and very heavy and needed to be taken care of. The block on 27th Street, I am the planner and the maintenance person and the financier of the whole corner up there, and it's been my life's work to get this done. I've lived there. I've enjoyed raising my family, and I've pretty well, maintained that end of the block and still do. My decision to go with the metal on these roofs comes from part of my history with the shingles, which goes back to the Sanborn report, which was there in 50, which if you had a picture of me in 50, it'd be a lot different than I am today. In 22, when they were built, they were all wooden shingled, and nobody thought of the fire hazards and the dangers then. They just put them on. I think this is something that really needs to be looked at as a commission, as something that could be acceptable, even though I know right now it's not. It's been brought to my attention. The only thing I ask is that you take a look at the aerial view, whoever's in control of that button. There are now 4 of them right there in a row. This neighborhood was built being Art Deco, and, you know, each one of these, as I've looked this morning, there's a lot of different styles houses in that neighborhood, and I would like for the change that I've made as part of my history to be accepted. They've changed the wall, they've changed the sidewalk, they've changed the park, they've changed the apartment down the street, and somehow I wound up with a small parcel here that I can't change. And it bothers me, but I'll get over it. I'd just like to be in compliance, and I would like for y'all to think of this. And if you think I've really got to replace those 2 roofs, please give me time, because as I retired, I put my retirement income into this project so I wouldn't have to do it anymore. And it's going to take me just a little bit of time to get the money together. I've got to go borrow some and take all this off and redo it and put the shingles back if that's what this commission feels like needs to be done. I was just trying to improve my neighborhood, and I was trying to put something on that would last. I took 5 layers off of each one of these properties and disposed of it that had built up over the years, and I put my 1 new layer on. So if anybody could possibly think that this might be something that's acceptable, I would really like the chance to just go on, because I've got things that need to be done in the other areas of these houses that will be neglected if I have to take the roofs off and put them back on. And that's what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swart. Any comments, commissioners?
I think we can empathize with you, but Mr. Swart, we're tasked with weighing the applications against the guidelines, and I think the guidelines are clear in that metal roofs are not appropriate. So I don't see how we could approve this roof, unfortunately.
That's right.
How much time will he have if we...
We could continue it to the June meeting, so that would give him another 2 months to continue to work on finding a suitable replacement. And many roof replacements can be administratively approved. So,
Then to get the work done, how much time does he have?
I'm sorry?
To get the work done.
Well, once something's approved, you have a year before your CA expires.
And you can apply for an extension?
You can apply for an extension. Some amount of work has to have been completed.
Has
you have
started within a year.
So if we continue it to the June 4th meeting, he would have time to select the new roofing materials without paying the additional or submitting a new application.
Correct.
Could that be a staff approved then?
Depending on what documentation we have and what the materials are that are proposed, yeah, we could administratively approve it.
Okay.
Okay. So
Then I move to continue HPCA 14-00031 to the June 4th meeting. June 6th meeting? June 4th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements, seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's been continued to the June 4th meeting.
Number 8, HPCA 14-00032 at 115 Northwest 27th. This is the same applicant, the same work that's been completed, the same proposal.
Then I make a motion to continue to the June 4th meeting, HPCA 14-00032.
Second.
Okay. Been so moved by Heather Clemmer and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's been continued also. Thank you, sir.
HPCA 14-00033 at 2209 Northwest 25th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Anthony Hazen for certificate of appropriateness to 2, replace fascia wrap required, 4, replace siding on dormers required, and 5, replace window wrap required.
Okay. Must be the applicant.
Sorry, I'm signing in. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Anthony Hazen.
Thank you. Any comments from the commissioners? Discussion?
I have a question of staff. If it looks like the staff report implies that the guidelines do not support the work that's been done, yet you recommend a continuance.
So what had been discussed with the applicant was continuing it at this time and allowing him the time to selectively remove some of the inappropriate material that's been applied, evaluate the condition of the wood elements that are underneath, and then assess whether or not those need to be replaced, repaired, or whether that material can just simply be removed and it's painted.
Mr. Hazen, is that okay with you?
So to make sure I understand, so we're going to try to continue, I would try to continue to work with the staff to determine proper replacement of these 3 items.
Yes.
Okay. Is it at all possible that any of the 3 items are approvable? I don't know if you guys have all the background on how I got here, but it really was purely just oversight.
I don't see that they'd be approvable. Do you?
It's vinyl, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And the background is I purchased the house in 2005. It was all vinyl when I purchased it. Had a hail damage claim where I worked through my insurance company, not really thinking if I was using in-kind materials, I thought I was in compliance, but obviously I was not.
And the issue is, if you were replacing less than 50% of that material, then you could.
Right.
Is that the way it would work?
Once you go over 50% of any one item, then we require you to replace the inappropriate material with appropriate material.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so if that's my option, I mean, if there's no way to get these things approved, which I understand, I would like to proceed so that I could work with the staff. And just for my own clarification, I would be able to work directly with the staff to get the approvals and ultimately get their certificate of appropriateness without having to come back to this type of a meeting. Is that right? Okay.
It's approvable? Okay.
So would that be a continuance to the June 4th docket? Or
Yeah, I think so, to give
for
us
safeness?
time to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I move to continue HPCA 14-00033 to the June 4th docket.
Second.
Been so moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's continued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00036 at 911 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Michael and Sandra Kirk by John Flewitt of Garden Design for certificate of appropriateness to number 4, install pool, paving, and pool equipment elective, and 5, install fireplace and paving elective. We do have a letter provided by the applicant with some signatures in support from neighboring property owners that you should all have a copy of. There was also a comment submitted by the Heritage Hills Preservation Review Committee that they do not object to the size and location of the pool, but would prefer to see something other than just concrete as the paving material. It's currently brick pavers in the area. And I think the applicant's here to describe the project.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Michael Kirk. I'm the homeowner.
Welcome.
Lived in historic areas for now 25 plus years. This is our 4th house, and this is my first time here, so kind of cool. Very impressive. So, yeah.
How'd you escape all those years?
Just a little background on where we're coming from, and then this is John Flewitt, our architect, and why we hired him, and then I'll let him get into the details. For those of you I don't know, I'm a dentist, and so I'm a highly detailed-oriented person to begin with, and there's other words for it, but we'll stick with that. We are fortunate to have the opportunity to own this very special property in Heritage Hills. And it's a unique property and really one of the most, special properties, in our opinion, in the state. And so we take the job very seriously of caretaking for this home. That being said, that's why we researched somewhat endlessly to find John, because in my opinion, he's the most qualified person to make things look the way this house deserves it to look. And so he's done several dozen landscape architect projects in Crown Heights and Heritage Hills over the years. And I apologize that I did not have a chance to make a copy of this. This is some of the special homes in Heritage Hills that he has done. I can't pass this around.
Those are pretty recent projects, and you all might be familiar with some of those.
So the unique challenges that we have is our lot is a very unique lot in the neighborhood. It's L-shaped, and so that presents some special challenges of which John has we think, overcome. I want everything to be perfectly tasteful, and like I said, I want it to look like it was built with the house. And so every detail we've tried to think through to this point. We've got the cooperation of our neighbors and the neighborhood committee with the recommendations of more brick. Believe me, that's a detail that we had thought through and we're not opposed to it. The challenge has been sourcing the brick so that it looks correctly, and we're not finished with that part of it yet. And we actually have 3 or 4 different types of brick that have been used in landscaping hardscapes in the past, and so trying to decide which way to go with the brick is why we didn't include that. The concrete work that will be done is by a specific contractor who can make it look like cast stone, and our home has a lot of cast stone now. And so that was the thought process going into that. But like I said, we're not opposed to more brick. It's just sourcing it. And it's hard to tell from there, but there are 3 different bricks going on with the house, the wall, the walkways, et cetera. So now I'll be quiet and let John address your questions.
Mr. Kirk, looking at the site plan you submitted, it looks as if there's room in the rear yard to accommodate the pool and the fireplace, and this was something that staff recommended as per the guidelines. Is that something that you would consider?
I won't say that I won't consider it. Actually, we already did consider it, and we had an original plan drawn up that way, and the way that it played out, it would eat up all of the greenscape, and we have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old sons. And so we felt it was important to keep some yard and not make it, a large patio home, which is essentially what it ended up looking like with that plan.
The area on the west side of the house, I don't know where that slide is, but it's already paved mostly. That area. There's that small area of garden up against the house. So the pool, we designed it to take that space and still have space for furnishings where you see the chaise lounges. And what the Kirks emphasized to me from the very beginning was that they would like to have privacy from the street, which does not show on this plan, but that's been part of the equation the whole time, was to give them more greenery outside of that wrought iron fence, which you just saw. There is greenery there now, but we were to add more. You see the Nellie Stephen hollies in between the windows, and there's a magnolia over here on the left. So they reiterated that several times to me, that they wanted it private from the street. So that's how we would achieve that, probably repeating the hollies and giving more evergreen material there, so that there's still somewhat of a feeling of transparency, but there's privacy at the same time. We did butt the pool up all the way against, again, because it's a small space, and small pools are more popular nowadays than great big large pools. Either way, we wanted to keep that open lawn area for the kids to play and their pets. the stone that's in that previous slide is a slate, which we didn't feel like really, I don't know how long that was there, but it might have been something the Paynes did, the previous owners, but we didn't feel like it really blended nicely with the age of the home and as much as just keeping a quiet, simple surface like concrete, and that's why we suggested that rather than more brick. The house is all brick with the cast stone details, and we felt like with concrete it was a cleaner look and actually more in keeping with that age of the home. Just felt like that was the better choice, to not get it too busy with too much brickwork. There'd be brick details such as the fireplace and some of the coping, and these retaining walls, of course, are all, some of these would stay in place as they're shown. This one in this particular slide, it would be demolished because the patio is increased for a little more usable space in that area. There is a retaining wall that goes all the way around the backyard that's brick that looks pretty good, and we would retain a good part of that.
Okay. As a question on the site plan, it doesn't show that the front fence, but does it hit at the southwest corner of the house, or is it set back from the southwest corner of the house?
Set back just a little bit. According to our plan, it's got the fence. You see there's the retaining wall that you're looking at there, and then the fence where the arrow is.
So is the retaining wall out with the front beds in front of the house? Is that what happens? And then the fence sits slightly behind that, more in line with the face of the house itself?
The hollies are planted in between that retaining wall and the wrought iron fence.
Okay.
Jeff, if you look at page 18 of the staff report, there's a more zoomed-in site plan that does show the fence and retaining wall in more detail.
There we go. Great. And on that same page 18, the squiggles that we see on the north part of the plan, are those retaining walls as well?
Yes, sir, and they're existing.
Great.
They're in good shape and look good with the existing structure.
That looks like a good place for a pool.
Sorry?
I said that it looks like a great place for a pool back there, potentially.
I think just the fact that it's a nice open lawn area, so few gardens in that neighborhood have an area like that for the backyard. And we felt like the pool would pretty much take care of that, where it wouldn't have an open play area. There are existing trees in all the way across the back, and digging a pool would impede the root systems to those trees because those roots are down and out into that lawn area. And so we wanted to try to capture and keep all of that existing landscape. It's a great backdrop.
And I don't question that at all. My point of just saying is that our guidelines at 2.5.3 state that landscape elements in backyards not visible from any street or adjacent property less than 6 feet in height are not subject to. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Sorry.
Which one? 2 point?
Sorry. I'm going to find my place and get back to you, but most of it was not in public right of way, or not being seen from the public. That's my big hesitation with this.
I think also we've got, along those lines, you've got a permeable space with that grass. And you've already got the side of the house concreted. So do we want to add more concrete to a space that, get rid of that greenery? So, I don't know, I struggle with this.
Well, if you have the front elevation of the house, it is extremely high off the street, so to begin with. And like John was saying, we plan for extensive plantings to screen it even more because, not just because of you, but because we don't want it to be seen from the street.
I will just chime in with some of staff's thoughts on this. We don't have a lot of specific guidelines about the location of pools. We frequently administratively approve swimming pools that are in the backyard, and typically people propose them in the backyard where they have a site-proof fence because people do want privacy in a swimming pool. Because this was up in the side yard and forward of where our guidelines would allow a site-proof fence, we felt that it needed to come to the commission. This is a unique house and a unique site. So the commission may feel that the level of visibility there, the paving that's already there, or other factors warrant a unique circumstance. We just wanted to have a clear articulation of if this is appropriate here, why do we feel it's appropriate, so that we don't start down a path of pools being allowed in side yards, and then 2 years later the person comes in and says, well, now I need a site-proof fence at the front wall of my house because you let me put in a pool and my neighbors are watching me. So just kind of considering why do we feel that it would be appropriate in this place?
So does a pool fall under landscape features?
Yes.
Landscape elements which should be restrained on the fronts of buildings to allow viewing of the public face and maintain historic streetscapes? I was looking for, it says something about viewing from the front.
I'm sorry.
I was looking for something that refers to viewing.
Yeah, I thought I saw something too. I can't find what I was looking at.
It's not in the front.
I might add that along this west-facing wall, and I know we're talking about from the street, is very, very private along there. There's an existing brick wall. It's not that visible, but there's greenery on it. And
it goes on and it says added landscape features are more appropriate in back or side yards. This is on page 4, staff report 4 of 7.
I might note, too, it's a typically, as far as pools go, it's a pretty small pool. And we felt like that was the only way it worked, having a very classic, rectangular, simple shape, not a lot of bells and whistles or anything on it, so that it looked appropriate to the home and to the existing architecture features.
So some of the references commission members are looking for in the policy for landscape and landscape elements. It talks about landscape features should be restrained on the fronts of buildings to allow viewing of the public face of the property and maintain historic streetscapes. Under design justification, it says added landscape features are more appropriate in back or side yards. And then we have guidelines that allow for administrative approval of landscape elements in backyards not visible from the street or adjacent property. So, as I said, we don't have a lot of guidance on specific to swimming pools, and I think that's probably because we typically don't see them this far forward in a visible location.
So it's just a simple rectangle?
Yes, sir.
Nothing up above the ground?
We want purposely keep it very classic in the materials and the shape. It would actually look probably more like an oversized fountain. We have some jets we proposed that would jet water off the side of the home into the pool, just simple water jets. Could be turned
Reflecting
on.
pool or something?
Yes, sir.
So no big spiral slides.
No, and it's actually an
No water
all-tile
features.
pool, so very, very, very classic. I mean, like I said, we want it to look like it was original with the house.
Well, I think your house sits in an unusual way on your lot, and you've got a very narrow, what we would consider backyard, which kind of brings in a whole different set of circumstances for it, at least in my mind. It also, your house sits up very high, and when you think of this element not really having any vertical expression, so to speak, it really is not visible from a public right-of-way, at least in my way of thinking. The landscaping is very nice on the fence. If we have a really hard summer and all your landscaping dies, then it's not as though you could come back before us and ask for a site-proof fence. The fence is there, it's existing, it's transparent, and that's what would be required. The landscaping is not something that we review. That's up to you, and I think it obviously looks great and adds to the aesthetic. But.
Jeffrey, I agree with Jeffrey. I've had the opportunity to visit your home. It's an incredible home. I feel it's the top 10 homes in Heritage Hills, without a doubt. I am in full agreement with the neighborhood committee. They have no problem with the pool. And I think it's a nice, very tasteful design. I think it's a very difficult lot to work with, of course, because there's just not much of it when you consider the substantial size of the home. Probably north and south sides of 15th Street. It's a unique section of Heritage.
And the number of existing site elements already on the property with all of the retaining walls and the garage and that sort of thing. There's a lot going on already.
Right. And plus, I'm very comfortable with the number of neighbors that are in agreement with this particular application.
Okay. More comments? Motion? Anyone?
Staff's report had mentioned on the fireplace that it found that same specific finding about it being able to see it from the right-of-way. I guess I'm missing how that, I mean, it seems like there's a lot going on in front of it that would make it less, are you talking about the height?
Yeah, I think so. I do think it would be minimally visible. It is set back quite a ways as compared to the pool, but we just, since it technically is on the side and not behind the house, and it's a transparent fence, it wouldn't fall under what we as staff would say, this is not visible, we can administratively approve it. But you're right, I don't think it's going to be terribly noticeable from the street.
What is the permeable paving you're referring to?
The guidelines discuss paving in backyards and using permeable surfaces, so something like brick or stone pavers that's not set in concrete.
So the fact that this is dry laid is permeable? The existing? I'm looking at the image.
Yes, the existing I think we would consider to be
permeable. Okay, somewhat.
But the proposal is for concrete? Okay.
And the neighborhood had suggested something like brick. I don't know that I really have a strong feeling one way or another. I don't know if anyone else does. Okay.
The driveway is all brick, and we just felt like it was good to change and do something simpler in the back. It wasn't by choice of money or economics. It was really keeping a quieter surface so that it read more spacious and just a cleaner look.
Well, part of the reason for asking for suggesting in the guidelines permeable is to keep the water away from the house, to give it a place to go so that it's not coming back towards the house in using that concrete.
Or your neighbor's house.
Or your neighbor's house. In using the concrete, is that being taken into consideration?
Well, I don't know who the pool contractor is yet. I don't know if that's been decided. Bruce Barcosi will be the builder. But that would be taken into consideration, putting proper drains in all of that concrete or brick surface to eliminate having water back in the pool or in the house. That would all be addressed.
There's landscape areas around all of the paving. So.
I think the permeability was a concern, and then also just the appearance of a new bright white concrete, as opposed to how the brick looks now. It's a more natural color and blends in.
But concrete will have to be colored.
It'd be the Heritage Hills approved color. It's kind of off, it's got a little tan pigment to it. They've got a name for it.
Can you really see it from the right-of-way? I mean, it's in the backyard, so you can't see it, correct?
Which?
Side yard.
The concrete.
It's also around the pool.
It's all around the pool. Okay, apologize.
Well, and I apologize. It's kind of hard to, it is concrete, but concrete's not really the exact, it's made to look like cast stone. Coloring, even the irregularities in it, it's not concrete like a
Is it
concrete street.
a stained concrete?
No.
No.
It would be built.
Is it an overlay? Like a concrete overlay?
They mix it in at Dolisi. It's Dolisi's formula.
Oh, okay.
Specific for Heritage Hills. It's required if you're pouring concrete, a driveway or a walkway,
Okay.
any concrete surfaces.
So when you say it's meant to look like cast stone, it's not a stamped concrete?
No, it's just this one contractor has this specific technique.
Okay.
We sought him out.
It's a trowel technique.
The rub, kind of
I've
rub
seen it.
finish.
Yeah.
It's probably,
I was going to say, it's pretty smooth, and Bowmanite, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Chuck Kerrigan, but he does the best concrete work in
the
town.
sweat finish, he calls it.
And some of it, like you see the main patio in front of the fireplace, that could either be a tool joint or it could be a score joint, but made to look more like a cast stone surface.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. All right. I'm going to give a stab at something, see if everyone agrees with me, or at least a majority. I'm going to move to approve HPCA 14-00036, items numbered 4 and 5, to construct pool and fireplace and replace existing paving, with the unique circumstances that, 1, the lot is unusual in shape, and the house siding, the way the house is sited on the property, limit the appropriate places for a pool to be installed. In addition, the existing site amenities also limit those options for this property. Unique circumstance number 2, that the backyard is elevated and the pool is not visible from the public right-of-way, even though it sits forward of what would typically be allowed. With the specific findings that, 1, the proposed pool is a modern landscape element more appropriately installed in a location not visible from the public right-of-way. 2, that the pool is proposed forward of the approvable location of a site-proof fence. 3, the site is already paved at this location. 4, the existing fence is transparent. Anything else?
Okay.
It's very good.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been so moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00038 at 318 Northwest 17th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Tom Caniglione by Teresa Delaney for certificate of appropriateness to, number 2, construct addition to garage, elective, and 3, replace sidewalk with new construction, within new construction area, elective. You do have comments from the Heritage Hills Review Committee on this item that were distributed. I'm looking for them.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Excuse me, your name is?
Teresa Delaney.
You're Teresa, okay. I'm not Thomas. Okay, thank you.
Just a little bit of orientation. The proposal is to replace the greenhouse, the freestanding greenhouse with an addition to the garage, and it would be at the rear of the garage, so the south end of the property.
Does the existing greenhouse have a concrete floor?
No, it has earth floor.
And what is the size of the existing greenhouse? Do you know?
I think it's about 12 by 24.
And the size of the proposed addition?
Is about 22 by 26.
Okay, thank you. I think I would agree with the Heritage Hills Preservation Review Committee that the fenestration of the side, I don't know what side that is, the east elevation, seems a bit out of character with all the windows. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
More comments?
Sorry, I'm still trying to get oriented with this one. I did not receive a packet this month, and so I was reviewing it all online, and this one got a little confusing to me.
So the east elevation that Neil is mentioning would be facing into the backyard. The garage sits to the north of it, and then with the addition being to the south. So the south and the west elevation of the proposed addition are very close to the property line, close to the fence. The east elevation is the one that would be more visible in a sense, but also is the one facing into the backyard space.
And the roof line of the greenhouse matches, the slope of the roof matches the slope of the garage? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
Are the windows true divided light with muttons?
No, they would be single.
Single?
Single, right. They wouldn't have any buttons. And the view from the east, looking towards the east, the adjoining neighbor has a two-story garage that with no windows facing into the backyard. So, and there are tall bushes and a fence in between the two.
So it seems as if the proposed addition is really meant to replace the greenhouse and serve as a greenhouse.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the increase in the footprint. Really, it's tucked behind the other garage. You're not going to be able to see it. I don't know that I have any problems with it. I move to approve HPCA 14-00038, items 2 and 3, to construct an addition to the garage and relocate paving with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Could you add one more finding, that the slope of the roof match the slope of the existing garage?
And we'll add another specific finding that the slope of the roof match the slope of the garage.
Great, thank you. I'll second that.
Okay, it's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and seconded by Jeffrey Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is it okay if we take a 5-minute break?
HPCA 14-00042 at 621 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Randy Floyd, AIA, for Dan and Barbara Batchelor for a certificate of appropriateness to 9, construct addition elective, 10, install transom windows in addition elective, and 11, construct porte-cochere elective. I'll just explain on the separation of the transom windows from the addition. Staff didn't really have any concerns about the proposed addition itself, but we did have some concerns about the transom windows that are very high on the sides of the addition as not really being compatible with the historic structure. They're in a location where they're not going to be visible from a public area, from the street, but guidelines do talk about windows in additions being compatible with other features. So that's why that's separated out as its own item.
Okay.
Hello. First thing I want to say is that we really have a... Can you hear?
Your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy Floyd.
We know you do.
Yeah. We have a real strong desire to follow the guidelines. And what we've really tried to do here is make a place where the bachelors can remain as they grow older. The house has so many stairs, it's just amazing. Stairs up the front porch. Once you get in the house, there's some more stairs, and then, of course, going out the back, there are several stairs. So we wanted to try to make an addition where they could have a bedroom on the first floor and be able to move around the house. And the parking problem, what we're really trying to accomplish there is to have a safe way for them to park their cars that is covered, that they won't fall on the ice, that sort of thing. Do we go through these one at a time, typically?
Yes,
The
a lot
items?
of times the commission will discuss each item individually.
Okay.
So I think generally the addition seems perfectly fine, nicely sized, totally appropriate. I think the garage location on this property is really unusual. I don't know if we have any history on that. I guess the Sanborn maps show this is where it's always been, at least as far as we know.
Yes, but I believe the Sanborn maps don't go back that far for this particular area. Let me double check the...
As far as I know, an attached garage right in the middle of the lot was the original condition of this house.
Yeah, house was built in approximately 1937, and the earliest Sanborn map we have is 1950. So it would have been within that 13 years that it would have been added on. I mean, looking at other houses in the street and just kind of the footprint of it, it looks like, well, maybe that could have been added, but that would be a relatively short time span.
It's a very old addition.
And it would still be, yes, it would be a historic
Correct.
addition of a garage.
Correct, yeah.
I might go ahead and note that the garage is 18 feet wide by 20 foot 10 deep, and those are out-to-out dimensions. So it's virtually impossible to get a car in there.
Any more questions?
The transom windows, just to clarify, they're located on the east and west end of the addition, correct?
That's correct,
One
yeah.
of them is in what will be the bathroom, and the other would be, I guess, over where the bed might go. in
That's
the
correct,
bedroom
yes.
part.
And I might add, if the commission has a problem with the transom windows, we're perfectly fine with continuing that and finding another solution that's maybe more appropriate.
So,
Since we take each one of these separately, I think I'll just start with the addition itself, which is item number 9, and then we can talk about whether or not we need to continue the transom and how we feel about the portico share. So I make a motion to approve HPCA 14-00042, item number 9, with the specific findings. Once I find those specific findings, that the proposed addition, design and materials are consistent with the guidelines, and that the addition will not be visible from the public right-of-way and will have no adverse effect on the historic integrity of the structure or district.
Second.
By Jeffrey. Okay, it's been moved excuse me, by Heather Clemmer and seconded by Jeffrey Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 9 has been approved. Next. Why is the transom windows separated? They're part of the addition.
Because they seemed like they might not be
Okay. All right.
historically appropriate for the addition, maybe?
I guess I'm wondering about all the windows that are on the proposed, or that are on the addition. Are they proportional to what is currently on the existing structure?
Yes, you're talking about windows in particular. Yes, they are. They're double hung. They're certainly taller than they are wide. They have appropriate divided lights that are similar to what is on the existing house windows.
But they're not the same size.
Well, no, they're not the same size because this building has a higher plate height. We have a 10-foot plate height. So
there are a range
the
of
windows in the
sizes.
house would look too small on this building.
Yep, and there's a range of sizes of windows on the main house, but the windows on the rear of the proposed addition did seem to be more in keeping with the proportions of the existing historic windows.
Right. Especially, you look at the windows at the front of the house and that wider elevation. Yeah, I think the rear fits fine for me. The transom, I could maybe see some question on the transom windows on the sides. Maybe there's a different alternative for those, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
Other options? Okay. Then I would, if everyone's okay with it, move to continue item number 10 of HPCA 14-00042. Would it be appropriate to the May or June docket?
We need the next meeting.
Okay.
And we have how many days to submit it?
You have till Tuesday of next week.
Well, thanks.
We'll work with you.
Get the weekend.
Okay.
Architects, we don't sleep, do we? Right.
No, we never do.
So continue to the May 7th docket.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's continued. Item 10 is continued. Item 11. Construct portico share.
I have a few comments regarding this, whatever it is we want to call this, car covering. As we mentioned before, we have some really unique conditions with this house. It's a very unusual case of an attached garage, which didn't happen that often in Crown Heights. It's in the middle of the lot, so as you drive up the driveway on the west, you have a very tight turning radius to make it to the garage doors. And the cars today are just, it's just about impossible to get a car in there. I think you can get one car in, is it the south side of the garage if you maneuver it just right. And it's a fairly small car. So we really have a problem that's fairly unique here. And we have the shared drive with the house on the west. So, we have to park our cars on the west side of our house, or the bachelors do. There really is no option. And, relative to the comment about, in the staff report, about accessory buildings needing to follow the setbacks in the neighborhood. I looked at the old Sanborns. I looked at the old Sanborn maps, but I looked at a broader. I looked at a broader area than was in the staff report. It just contained a few houses right around the bachelors. So everything on this map that's circled in red is an exception to the rule stated in the staff report that the houses always are consistently on the east property line or on the west. So these are evidently houses with a shared drive that have garages abutting the same property line. So there are a number of these cases, and I think that we fall into this condition.
You're talking about the setback from the front, not the side, are you? You're talking about.
I'm talking about side yard setbacks.
Side yard. Mm-hmm. Aren't you talking about setback to the front of the garage? What do you?
I think that comment was from the side.
Side.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Not having continuous structures all the way from one side property line all the way across the property, abutting into the next property.
Okay, I see it. Sorry. It's not an enclosed structure.
We did a visit with the city permitting department, and they were fine with it in its proximity to the neighbor's garage.
What if it was kind of a freestanding structure, kind of connected?
Okay, that's exactly what we're going to propose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that might look more like more of a garden, a landscape element, like a.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Pergola.
So it's funny you should mention that. In a previous case today, they presented this photo of 219 Northwest 16th. And it looks like there's a huge pergola sitting in front of the garage, and it looks pretty new. Did we do that? Do we know that?
That's 16th? Is that 16th?
Yeah.
They told Greg.
We had to. I mean, not us per se, but.
Yeah, I remember that.
I know the house.
Yeah.
So, but when I saw that photo, it made me think of this case in a lot of respects. And, disengaging it from the house does help it feel like a landscape element.
Right.
Instead of an extension of the dwelling, so to speak.
Right. What I've considered is to avoid making any changes to that existing garage west. There's a swoop on that roof, and it sticks out and makes a covered walkway about 3 or 4 feet. So I was considering taking this new building or structure and putting it just a few inches away from that. Otherwise, we won't really have enough room to maneuver a car at all. but it wouldn't affect that building at all. So if anyone ever wanted to take the structure down, it would be freestanding and they could do so.
But Randy, wasn't some of the reason for such because of ice and icy conditions?
Absolutely, yes.
To be protected, but a pergola is not going to do the trick, right?
Well, we'll have a roof on it. I mean, we'll have to have a roof on it.
I mean,
Is
I
that
think
what
what
you
we
were
were just
thinking?
looking at did not have that.
It'll look.
But I think what he's saying is that kind
Would
of
have.
landscape out where it's more temporary. What we've got in the guidelines seems to suggest do not construct a permanent, a permanent porte cochere where one has not existed before. So if it's not a permanent structure, if it is more of whether we call, we're kind of dealing with what do we call this? Is it a landscape? Is it, what is it? Is it some kind of just covering? So I think my recommendation would be, rather than deny it, to continue it. I don't know if this is something that you could have ready by Tuesday as well, or if you would want to continue this to June to give you more time.
I think I've already been playing around with some ideas once I saw the staff report. So I think we could have something ready in time for the May 7th meeting.
Can I ask, do you have the south elevation somewhere? I can't seem to find it, that shows the existing residence head-on. And I think that could be...
I believe that is more in the photos that we submitted.
Because that could be something positive to your case where you can't see it head-on. Where it's around the corner, yes, but I don't...
You can see it.
How much of that porte cochere, whatever, is visible from the public right-of-way, I guess, would be a helpful thing to see in elevation, perhaps?
Yes. For me, it would, but I'm trying to figure it out.
I would say the way it's designed right now, it's probably around 6 or 8 feet of it would be west of the house.
Does it, will the front of it kind of align with the neighbor's garage? Because there's a photograph on page 2 that shows the neighbor's garage.
If you look at the site plan, A1,
there it is, right there.
it shows
There it is.
it's probably 4 feet in front of the neighbor's garage. And the reason I did that is there's an existing column in the house that I was using as a structural member. Because this site is so tight, it's hard to find a place for a new column that isn't going to obstruct the cars.
In fact, it's not enclosed. You can see right through it.
I would continue only because I'm having a very hard time following any of these plans. I just don't.
Particularly on this element, I mean, it was one thing, the information we have for the addition, but it's kind of hard to visualize where exactly this, whatever we're going to call it, is going to be, how far it sticks out, how wide, how deep, even what it's going to look like. I couldn't seem to figure that out.
Did you look at the west elevation? Because you get the best view, I think, of it on the west elevation.
What page is that?
So that is page A3.
Page 9 of 50 of the staff report.
Here, there's the dashed line. So I was just saying, chop it off here. Freestanding. It's going to be in concrete. Temporary.
I guess I can't see from the site plan how the elevation, I see how the elevation is, but it doesn't relate to how the site plan is drawn. So I'm confused on how it actually works. And I mean, that would be the only reason I want to continue it.
Can you say that one more time?
Like the west elevation is, I mean, I can see what you're doing, but it doesn't, to me, when I'm looking then at C2, I don't understand how that's going to hit the existing residents in plan.
I think the reason is because what we submitted was actually taking that existing garage roof and really kind of rebuilding it and making it continuous with this new structure.
Okay.
So we've abandoned that idea.
Okay.
And that's why that drawing is a bit confusing.
Okay.
So then if we continue perhaps until May 7th, and then you're going to come back with some other thoughts on a freestanding structure, that's where we're headed, correct?
Okay.
So
We're good with that.
sounds good? Perfect. Great. Then I would move to continue HBCA 14-00042, item number 11, to the May 7th docket.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, continued to
Thank you.
May 7th. Thank you.
HPCA 14-00043 at 310 Northwest 27th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Jimmy Green for certificate of appropriateness to 1, re-brick structure required, 3, demolish garage and addition required, 7, replace windows elective, 8, add front porch elective, and 9, re-enclose back portion of structure required. This is a house that from looking at photos as well as from the Sanborns has been altered significantly over time. There was an attached garage that had been added on as well as an addition. It's difficult to tell from the Sanborns, but it almost looks like they connected the house to a previously detached garage and kind of just morphed over the property and then added on an attached garage. The attached garage actually extended significantly over their property line. So what they have proposed in their application, which we review as if it had not already occurred, but some of this work has been done, was the removal of that addition at the back and the non-historic attached garage, re-bricking the house because of damage to the brick on all sides, and then reconstructing what's now the exterior back wall of the house, adding windows and doors, as well as adding a front porch where there currently is none. It appears that this house historically had a front porch that went all the way across, and at some time that was enclosed. So the applicant is wanting to recreate a front porch on the corner of the property. A number of the window openings appear to have been previously altered and made smaller. So that was one of staff's main concerns, was just the appropriateness of the size of the window openings.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Green with 310 Northwest 27th Street, and this is Linda Ryburn, a friend of mine as well as my mentor.
Okay. Everybody needs a mentor.
I will just add one more thing because I know we have lots and lots of photos and it's kind of confusing. If you look at page 8 of the staff report, that is the west side of the property prior to removal of some of the brick and the windows. And then if you look at the page just prior to that, page 7 is looking at that side after work had already been initiated from the front of the house instead of from the back of the house. So that kind of gives you a sense of where windows and doors used to be and where some of those windows and doors are now.
It seems like staff recommended a continuance because there was a lot of information that you still needed. Did you receive that additional information?
We need to work with the applicant on some of it, but a lot of it is information that is kind of dependent upon the commission's direction, particularly with the window sizes and detailing of the windows. We have a couple of different existing window sills and kind of trim elements. We have window openings that appear to have been altered. As I said, the whole house has been altered quite a bit, so wanted to kind of get the commission's feedback on how much they should try to go back to what would have been a historic window size based on what we can see of the brick, and how much they could stay with the existing window openings.
So of the ones where the window opening appears to have been altered and they're proposing to go back with a window in that altered location without going back to the original, is there a reason why you cannot go back to the original size?
Mainly just because of frame size and the inside of the drywall and as well as the windowsill and everything. We are going to be re-bricking, but it seems to be that there's a pattern of they're wider and shorter windows overall, and just we're going to stick with the frame size that was there when we got the house. In the back part, there are 3 windows that are put in. There, let's see, on the east side, there's a 36 by 36. And on the south side, there is a 72 by 36, and on the west side, there is also a 72 by 36. Those windows are larger than the others, but they will also be they will not be able to be seen from the street because of the fence. There's a 6-foot fence that spoke with Katie and Angela about putting in, and those will hide those windows from the street.
I don't know. It seems if you're rebricking the whole house, that seems like the perfect opportunity to kind of return and restore the historic condition, which I think the guidelines would support. But I don't know.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Well, especially if you know where they are, because it's apparent where the location was. Sometimes it's hard for us to suggest where to put something back where we know it could have been historically, but this is very obvious where it was.
I think that it is maybe obvious that the windows were different, yes, because of the brick has a different pattern in some areas, but to what degree is unknown to me. So therefore, unless it's there's information in the Sanborn maps or something along those lines, I can say, yes, the windows are different, but to what degree, I do not know.
Katie, were you able to identify the differences in any of your research?
You know, I'm not certain on any of them. We kind of went through in the staff report and numbered each window and identified ones where, like you can see in the picture, where there's a pretty clear line of brick fit in underneath the window, that those probably had been changed at some point. So we don't have historic photos. Well, that one side that I mentioned on page 8 of the staff report, you can see where they were before, but even those had obviously been altered prior to that photo being taken. So we have a rough idea of which ones probably have been changed and which ones are probably their original size, but not something that we could definitively prove.
And as well, the new windows that we're putting in, they're custom-made wood windows so we're definitely trying to match the historic appeal that the house and neighborhood provide or have.
So this new window on page 9 is not the new direction.
No, I believe those are to be, the replacement windows that are already in on some of them, those are to be replaced with a wood window. Is that correct?
Yes. Those we put in as temporary windows and will be taken out. Yes, those are temporary vinyl windows and will not stay in the home.
Is there any consistency in the size of the window openings?
Yes, nearly all the windows have the same height, except for the 3 that I said are in the backyard that cannot be seen from the street because of the fence. The widths do vary, but they seem to flow or go together. They're, roughly about 19 inches, I believe, off the top of my head, in height. But, we have some that are wide and some that are a little more narrow.
But by and large, they all seem unusually short for a house that was built when it was built, though, I think. That's part of where I struggle with going back with that same size of window where when you pull off the brick, you'll see, like in the one photo, you can see the sheathing that was added below the short window to cover up.
The window you're referring to actually is the bathroom window, and we did add that only to match the other heights throughout the rest of the house.
So this window, yeah, that one.
Oh, with that one,
Right.
I wasn't referring to that one. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm unsure of what the original window size was, and I do see what you're referring to.
Sure, but
that's
pull the brick off, and there's the sheathing that was covers up the original opening size there, right?
I do agree in that picture, but throughout the house, that is not the case. In every window, there isn't always some old material leaving, what size the window was.
I think a few of us are leaning toward, that picture that we saw a few minutes ago with the sheathing, if you've taken off the brick and you've uncovered the original window opening, then it should go back with that size window. And I don't know how many of these windows that is the case with. Do you?
No, I do not have the exact number, but with that being said, would it be possible that if we can go through and come to, figure out a size that the windows, look like they should have been, can I ask for approval maybe and then work it out with Katie and Angela on what the sizes should be? Since the windows, they're all old aluminum windows in there, and we're more just kind of going over what size the window should be.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to put on staff. Really the burden should be on the applicant to find that information.
Right, and I will go through and find that information, but what I was asking is if once I find it and can provide enough evidence, if I could show that to staff and get approval once we are to that point.
Katie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm just thinking, we typically don't do an administrative approval of pretty much anything with windows, and especially if there's going to be some question at a number of these about what is the appropriate size, if the openings have been altered numerous times, I would feel more comfortable with the commission making the final call on what size of openings are appropriate, as well as as we mentioned, the detailing of the windows, since we have a number of different styles of trim, different sills, that sort of thing, that I think we are going to want to be made consistent throughout the structure.
So it sounds like we just need more information. I wouldn't be comfortable moving forward with this application as it stands now.
So you want to continue it?
In order to do that investigation, you have to take down all the brick. I mean, you plan on re-skinning the building anyway, correct?
Correct.
So you'd be in the process of taking that down. You could document that at that time and bring that back to us.
Okay.
I mean, that may be your best bet and, dimension it. I'm just suggesting only because we would feel probably, well, I know we'd feel more comfortable approving something that you have investigated and we can take a look at.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking then, so we can, let's see, get brick removed, find as many window sizes as possible, try to find, some similarity throughout the windows and kind of see what we can come up with and draw them up. But then on the 3 windows on the back part, what about those 3 since they aren't with their original house?
Well, that was what I was going to ask. Are there other, we know we need more information on the windows, are there other items for consideration, including rebricking the house, that we could go ahead and give him either feedback or approve or continue that with, like the garage and the addition, which have been removed, because what he's asking about on the back of the house is now that they've removed the garage and the addition, what do we want the back to look like, which is number 9. So maybe we certainly make the windows number 7 part of a continuance, but maybe we need to look at 1, 3, 8, and 9 and figure out what he can move forward with and what also needs to be continued.
I was just thinking that number 3, kind of need to approve some demolition so we can investigate. Do the brick, and then come back for the rest. The design, what goes back. That's what I was thinking. But what do you guys want to do?
Staff had actually recommended continuing the whole thing. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
He's going to have to do some demolition to investigate.
Right.
Yeah, I think based on the need to remove brick so that the windows can be assessed, I think we could approve 1 and 3 and maybe continue the rest of it. There's also the proposal of the new front porch, which it might be helpful to give a little feedback on that design. If the Commission has some thoughts on that.
And also on that front porch, there's between Harvey and Hudson, which this is on 27th here, I feel that we have like one of the only homes that is not very historic looking from that picture right there up on the screen. And so by adding the front porch, it would definitely blend in a little more and have a more historic appeal.
So you think that we're looking at there was enclosed, existing porch?
Yes,
enclosed?
because the entire house is crawl space
Right.
except the kitchen, which is now on the most north part of the house. That part is slab there, and I believe that was once the porch after, because I've been under the house and all throughout the house, and it seems evident that was probably a porch at one point in time, and there's evidence that the kitchen was elsewhere through plumbing and such.
And I suppose you wouldn't think about restoring a historic front porch. You lose a lot of space that way.
Yeah, I don't. I kind of think that's maybe a point of no return.
You can see it there, yeah.
Katie,
And so
may I
by-
ask, if we did vote on 1 and 3, say re-brick structure, would that be, they wouldn't be putting it back until the windows were decided upon?
I think we could approve that with the condition that when brick is removed, the conditions underneath the brick are documented and submitted to staff prior to, which, too, if they're going to put windows back, they're going to have to wait a little bit before they totally put the brick back, but I think we could do that with a condition.
And in past experience, would there be some consideration for the mortar color?
Yeah, we have standard language for the...
Just be aware of the mortar color also.
Right, right.
Okay.
I think in regard to the proposed front porch addition, I agree with staff that it should be redesigned to follow more closely the historic character of other porches on that block.
It's kind of hard.
I'm just not sure that the design that you have here actually contributes to that. I understand the house has been compromised with enclosing the original front porch, but I think there might be a better option to make it fit in better with the street.
Can you provide some guidance on that?
We can't design for you.
I mean, but what exactly is your problem with the porch, so I'm aware?
I think with this house, originally it had a porch that ran the full length or width of the front of the house, and what you're proposing does not. Maybe if you go back with something that maybe matches more closely what was original to the structure, that might be more appropriate. That's just my thought. I'm just one commissioner. So, anybody else? I'm not an architect, so I don't know how you do that. Have you worked with an architect?
Yes, we have someone who actually drew up this design. I mean, this is just a rough sketch here, but.
Well, I'll jump in. I think if you had something that came out that just sort of framed that entrance would help, some sort of right now it's just sort of a door on the side, and before it probably had some sort of, symmetrical roof, it just had could be a smaller version with columns on both sides that came out a little bit from the...
Something there at the corner to delineate the door.
Now, you may be out for the building line, though.
But it's a porch.
Yeah.
It's a porch, though, so does that provide you with some latitude?
Well, what you've got there might be in violation, because the old house probably was on the building line, and the front porch stuck out.
Right.
I don't know, but the new porch would definitely probably be okay.
Could mimic
Could
the
encroach beyond.
pitch
Could encroach.
of this pitch to that pitch so that it actually guides you to the front door.
It'd be like a small version, just kind of the big one and then a little one.
I agree with Mila that the wraparound, I'd encourage you to look around the properties to your neighbors and across the street of how they've approached, and ask your architect to do the same.
Needs to be a little more prominent.
Right. Yeah. What is behind that big brick wall right now? Because it was a
Kitchen.
porch that was enclosed. Nothing?
Kitchen.
Oh, yes, that's the kitchen now.
Okay.
There's a plan on page...
Oh, sorry.
I was just looking at it.
What page?
I was just looking at it. I can't find it. 30? Yep.
Oh. Those are my suggestions, but I'm only one commissioner as well.
I understand. Thank you.
Does that give you some direction then?
Yes, it definitely does. I appreciate it. So, just so I'm clear, at this point, we're kind of move forward with 1, leave the windows open, and then as well as 3, and then continue the rest?
Do we need to continue 9, or is that something we can look at now? Close back.
My only concern would be 9 is that we might want to look at what we come to with the other windows in evaluating the windows for the back.
So are you okay with continuing the last 3 items?
So as far as continuing 9, we're pretty much referring to the windows there alone?
So replace windows, add front porch, and re-enclose back portion of structure, all 3 of those.
Right. But
Okay.
as far as 9, breaking 9 down a little further, we're mostly referring to the windows here, right?
Yeah, I think the brick is included. The brick at the back portion would be included with the rebricking of the rest of the structure. It would be more the doors and windows on the back that we would hold on those.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion?
You're okay with that? Continuing it?
Yes.
Okay.
When do I have to have everything in? You said Tuesday of next week?
Or it could be.
Or do you want to go for the June 4 meeting?
No, I'd like to move forward for next month.
Is it May 7? Okay, I move to continue HPCA 14-00043, items 7, 8, and 9, with the specific finding that additional information is required from the applicant in order to determine whether the action requested is consistent with all relevant guidelines and are in compliance with the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section D of the staff report. Continue to the May 7 meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and second by Jeffrey Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Continued.
We still need
We still
to
have-
approve the
We have to
first
add
2. Sorry.
1 and 3.
Oh, 1 and 3, I'm sorry.
Let's keep going,
Okay.
Neela. You're on a roll. A dynamic duo.
And I think we talked about including a condition on number 1 that in rebricking the structure that the window openings be documented after the brick is removed.
Condition on. Conditions on.
Yep. See the gears turning.
Okay, I move to approve HPCA 14-00043, item 1, to rebrick the structure with the condition that the openings be documented before rebricking the structure.
And do they have to come back to the commission for approval?
No.
Well, they'll come back for the windows.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Oh, yeah. With the specific findings that the deterioration and condition of the brick warrants repair or replacement, that the proposed replacement brick is a close match to the predominant historic brick, and that the mortar will match the color, composition, and profile of the historic mortar.
Second.
Okay. So it's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and second by Jennifer Bourne. Is that right? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so those are approved.
Okay, so the last one, I recommend approval of HPCA 14-00043, item 3, to demolish garage and addition with the specific finding that the addition and garage are non-contributing to the historic district and their demolition will not adversely affect the historic character of the property or district.
Second.
Okay. It's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that is approved. Are we done? Okay, thank you. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
month. Okay, last item?
HPCA 14-00045 at 2128 Northwest 28th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Catherine Montgomery for Diana Bird for certificate of appropriateness to 1. Demolish garage elective, 2. Construct garage elective, 3. Expand driveway, and 4. Install concrete patio elective. On your staff report, you have install fence, but that actually didn't make it onto the public notice. It is something we can administratively approve, so we'll get with the applicant to get that included in their CA.
Okay.
I'm Diana
Hello.
Bird, and I'm at 2128 Northwest 28th Street.
You sign in?
Yes, I did.
All right.
We do have a structural engineer's report on the proposed demolition of the garage that did find it to be an imminent threat. Photos would seem to support that assessment. And then the proposed replacement garage is a very close replica of the existing historic garage.
It's very unusual for this commission.
Yeah, you don't want it bigger? Two-story?
Is that all you got? What?
In a different direction.
I just had one question about the ridge caps. Are they gray now, silver?
They're metal. They're, a silver.
Will you put them back as metal, unpainted, or do you plan to do
They'll be
something to them?
painted, like
They'll be painted?
Like the roof color.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to approve this.
New record.
I do. Can I ask one thing of you? On the door, the pedestrian door, the proposal says wood, and I haven't had a chance to look at the cost difference between a wood door and a metal door.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if you can approve me to do either one. I would prefer a wood door, but if the cost difference is huge, I wanted approval for a metal door.
Does Shepherd allow a wood pedestrian or a metal pedestrian door?
Well, the guidelines for doors at accessory structures say other materials such as, et cetera. It doesn't specifically list steel doors, but I do think we've seen metal doors on accessory structures, especially when it's in a location that's not going to be visible from the street.
Right.
So there's no cut sheet on that metal door? Well, there is one. All right, and you guys came prepared.
Thanks.
Oh. Entry door, too.
It even looks historic.
And I believe the applicant was also wanting to get, the windows that were submitted are a wood window, but there's a product by the same window manufacturer that has identical specifications but is aluminum clad, which we do allow at new construction as well. So the applicant also wanted those to be considered.
If I could have the choice.
Yeah.
Is that?
So would that be approving that item with a condition, or what is the appropriate language for
Yes,
that?
I think it would be conditioned that either a wood or aluminum clad wood window
Door.
is appropriate, and final selection should be submitted to staff.
Okay.
And same for the door.
So we would have a steel entry door, an aluminum clad window, and a steel overhead door.
Yes.
It is overhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm ready to move forward if everyone else is. I would move to approve HPCA 14-00045, item number 1, with the specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, but is necessary because of an imminent threat to public health and safety, and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're approved with those changes.
I would move to approve HPCA 14-00045, items numbered 3 and 4, with the specific finding that the proposed work will not have an adverse on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I would move to approve HPCA 14-00045, item number 2. Construct a garage. Yes, with the, Katie, again, please help me with the language here.
The condition that either the aluminum-clad wood or wood window is appropriate, and either the wood or steel door is appropriate, with final specifications to be submitted to staff.
Yes, I would adopt that into my motion.
What you said.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeffrey Parks and seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's
That was easy.
easy. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, under other business, we actually have 3 items, which is unusual. First is our certified local government application. Oklahoma City is part of the State Historic Preservation Office's certified local government program. As part of that, we are able each year to apply for grant funds that are passed through the State Historic Preservation Office from the National Park Service. The commission is charged with reviewing and approving the application itself, and then that will go on to City Council for authorization to apply for a grant. The projects that are included as part of the application this year include doing a National Register nomination for the Santa Fe station, and doing 2 workshops, one for training for HP Commission as well as all of our design review bodies on historic preservation issues, and then developing another workshop that would be directed towards real estate professionals about what it means to buy a property in a historic district, which I've reined in George to assist with that. We have, under this current grant cycle, we're working on phase 1 of a citywide preservation plan, and we'll continue phase 2 of that in the next application. And I feel like I'm forgetting some other project. No, I think that's it. So those are the things that we're proposing.
So we need to recommend it to the City Council.
So I recommend the CLG subgrant application to City Council for approval, and recommend authorizing the Historic Preservation Chair to sign the application on behalf of the Commission.
Second.
Okay, it's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and seconded by Jeffrey Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's approved.
Okay, B, under other business, consideration and possible action to recommend acceptance of an easement donation to City Council. Staff has been working for a very long time on the development of a preservation easement on the Skirvin Hotel, and we're finally at a point where we're ready to have the Commission hopefully recommend acceptance, and then that will go to City Council for their consideration and acceptance. We have some folks here who, do you want to make a comment? Your staff report goes through the history of where this project came from. One of the Commission's powers is to recommend the acquisition of easements on historic properties, so we're hoping this is the first of more to come.
Hello.
I'm Leslie Batchelor, and I represent the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority, together with my partner, Lisa Harden. This preservation easement originated in the course of the negotiations to redevelop the Skirvin Hotel, and as part of the discussion of the large amount of public assistance that it was going to be necessary to make the project happen, it seemed appropriate that the city should receive assurances, that the hotel will be there for another 100 years, regardless of who should happen to own it along the way. So thanks to Katie's excellent help, we've been negotiating this agreement with the Marcus Corporation, the owners of the hotel, and subject to a couple of small tweaks and making sure that it's acceptable to the municipal councilor's office. I think we're ready to recommend it. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
What is it?
What is it? Okay, so technically, a preservation easement is a grant of a property interest. It's an instrument like a deed, but the rights that it grants are obligations to maintain the property described in the easement. In this case, we've limited the easement to the exterior of the building to ensure that the facade will always be maintained appropriately in accordance with what's called the baseline documentation, and that is the condition it's in today. And the agreement can be thought of as having three categories of activities. You have absolutes, and those are the things that absolutely must be done or absolutely cannot be done, and that's absolutely must maintain the facade and absolutely cannot tear it down or destroy it. And then you have a category of things that can automatically be done by the owner without any further review or approval, and those are in the nature of routine maintenance, so sort of in accord with how our HP guidelines work in the districts. Routine maintenance where you're using like-kind materials as appropriate, they can do without seeking any approval. But then there's a category in the middle which might raise a question of if, like materials are no longer commercially available, or if there's a slight change, then those would come to the city for review and approval. We're hoping that this will be a model for future ones. Each one will be a little different, but if we could get a program in place to ensure the preservation of these structures beyond what's regulated by the HP districts, I think we'd preserve more of the fabric of the city.
I think it's awesome. I'm very glad to see it finally come to fruition. And I guess so the question I would have is when you say it comes before the city, that would come before HP office and then perhaps to the commission?
So what it looks like is really pretty much everything that would be allowable under the easement is something that would be a staff review. Things that extend above and beyond a staff level of review are things that are going to be in violation of the easement, and that it would go to a more legal kind of
that building,
assessment of what's allowed.
Skirvin's on the National Register.
It is
They had
indeed.
tax credits to do that?
They use tax credits, and in part the reason we have had to wait so long to put this easement in place is that not only did it use the historic restoration tax credits, but also used New Markets tax credits, and you can't convey an interest in the property during the 7-year period of those tax credits. So we had to wait till those burned off, which was in December, and so we're working on this now.
Is it a historic landmark for the city?
It's included within the Downtown Design Review District, so there is already some review in place, but it's not designated, no, it's not a HL property.
So like a new ballroom on the back or something would not come to this commission. When it comes to like replacing, say 50 years from now, it's time to replace the windows, does that come before this body or does that come before your office?
Right now we have that set up so that it would be staffed because we have such excellent documentation of every inch of the building. Many windows have been replaced and we know exactly what products were used. So there's, like I said, there's really not anything that would be allowed under the easement that we wouldn't have ample documentation of. And then for things that are on the site, but not the actual historic building, those would still fall under other, the Downtown Design Review, and of course they have to get all other applicable permits and that sort of thing.
Are you guys thinking baby steps? Just having the easement be the skin of the building? Or, was there a reason why you didn't include somewhat of a perimeter?
On that particular site, the building really does pretty much fill the site. The ballroom annex is not historic. And so there's, other than the public right-of-way, unlike some larger properties, the possibility of an addition or extension doesn't really present itself here. The hotel owners, understandably, were protective of their ability to operate the hotel on the inside, effectively the way they've done for the years it's been open now. So, we wanted to work with them as cooperatively as possible to really show that this is not a difficult thing to do. It does not impinge on your ability to have a great, successful property, and that adding the preservation to the mix is just one more bonus. We did not want it to be onerous. So we think we get the protections that the public cares about, that the city cares about through the facade protection here.
Okay. There is language that addresses not building something that would obscure a view of the building. As Leslie said, I don't know that they really have room to do that anyway, but there is some language to address that in there. And as far as the interior, you typically don't do an easement on the interior unless it's really a 100% intact historic interior space, because it has lots of historic elements to the interior, but there have also been lots of changes over the years, so we stay with the exterior.
Why wouldn't they, just curious, pursue historic landmark status? Or why would you not want that?
They could certainly do that. At this point, once we have the easement on it, it would...
What's the difference?
...kind of be well, the difference is that it's a deed, and it will stay on the property in perpetuity.
Oh, okay.
Whereas HLHP is zoning, which at any time really could be altered or completely taken away. So this basically, unless the building ceases to exist, will continue on.
Interesting. Something new?
See, when this first came to us, it's been well over a year, right? It's been a long time. I just assumed easement meant, the property around it to protect that. For some reason, I didn't realize we're talking about the building itself. For an easement, really? I learned something. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a recommendation?
So our action is to recommend acceptance would be our
Yes, recommend acceptance and adoption of the resolution. Well, I guess you're adopting, motion to adopt the resolution recommending acceptance of the easement.
Right.
Sorry.
So I would recommend that. Sorry, it's very late in the day, and I've made a lot of motions, but I would recommend
acceptance of the donation.
There's discussion.
Nope.
Okay.
Now they're talking.
Second.
What was the motion?
So I guess because the agenda doesn't actually say adopting a resolution, you're just going to, at this time, recommend acceptance. And
yes.
Maybe we'll bring a pretty resolution back for you.
Okay. You want a resolution.
So at this time, I would recommend acceptance of the resolution.
Second.
You're recommending acceptance of the donation of the easement.
Yes.
No resolution.
There is no resolution, just acceptance.
There is one, but it's not.
It's not on the agenda.
I still second that.
Okay, so something's been moved by Jeffrey Parks.
Something that's very good for the Skirvin and the city, right?
Yeah. It's seconded by Neela Crank-Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've approved it.
Okay, thank you.
Recommended it, whatever. Next.
Our final other business is essentially a reconsideration of BOA 13868 at 604-628 Northwest 21st Street in Mesta Park, Ward 6. This is consideration and possible action to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow multifamily residential development. The Commission reviewed this at their previous meeting. Unfortunately, the Commission members did not have the staff report in their packet, so I know people were unfamiliar with what was being proposed. And then in addition to that, the Commission's recommendation was submitted to the Board of Adjustment, and they continued the item in part with questions of the Commission for some additional information about why the Commission made the recommendation it did. The Commission's recommendation was to approve the special exception for the 2 existing structures, but not for the 2 vacant sites on either side of the property. So it's back before you. We talked with Rita and talked with everyone and said it would be appropriate to have the commission take another look at the item and add additional information to your recommendation. If you feel differently about the recommendation now that you have had time to look at the staff report and become a little more familiar with the site, you have several letters on this item that have been distributed to the commission, some in support and some in opposition, either in whole or in part, to the project.
Oh.
I think the main thing that the Board of Adjustment had questions about were the 2 vacant lots on the east side and the 2 vacant lots on the far west. And Catherine and her office have given hopefully more information to kind of let you know what we'd like to do. And the far east end of the block is a 1-story bungalow. And then there are 2 lots between that and what we call the football building. And so we've proposed a 2-story, 2-unit condo building with a 4-car garage in the back of it. And so it is, Catherine can probably tell you a little better than I can, but it's about 2,400 square feet. You know Ms. Montgomery, I believe.
Welcome back.
Hello. Catherine Montgomery, Preservation and Design Studio, 1300 North Chartel. So we just prepared this little sketch for Marva. I think it's really important to point out that what's being requested at this time has nothing to do with actual design work. It's really a zoning process. But in discussions with the neighborhoods and understanding that people need something to be able to visualize what kind of a structure might go there, we've kind of rendered up the entire block so that you can have some context, and then just put that particular structure that's on the east side would be 2 stories with 2 1,500 square foot units, probably flats, one on top of the other. And then the covered parking and back, I mean, really, we're not here to talk about design, it's just kind of massing or just the size that something might be. And so it would cover, at this time it's anticipated to be kind of an open front cover for 4 cars for parking. Then on the west side, the corner, which is Lee and 21st Street, the proposal is there, again, two lots that measure 50 feet wide. And this structure would be 3 units at 1,200 square feet each. So that's about 3,600 square feet. The house that is immediately south of that is about 3,200 square feet, and according to the county assessor's website. So, and then again, proposing that each unit has 2 parking spaces, so that would be 6 parking spaces, and wanting those to be covered. Maybe there would be some kind of a open porch on the 2nd floor. That's kind of what we've indicated here, just to give you some idea of the scale of things. Some of our early ideas were maybe the buildings want to look similar to the Sunbeam building, maybe they don't, but the page 2 gives you the conceptual elevation or the existing elevations of all 4 sides of that particular block. Again, just to give you some context so that you can see how one might visualize that block from those lots from a distance. Then the last 2 pages from each of the corners of that block looking at an aerial view. So all of the structures are existing except for the covered parking and those 2 structures that are proposed for the corner and next to the other bungalow. It might be important to note that right now the bungalow has about a 6-foot wide there's a driveway that's existing that was obviously for double access between two properties. So we wanted to maintain that property owner's access to their garage. Otherwise, it's only like a 6-foot wide driveway. So that would be a shared driveway situation. So the main purpose of all of this is that the developer is seeking zoning because Sunbeam is moving out. The big building was originally a children's home, and then subsequently over the years morphed into an office building. So the idea is to take that building and rehab it using the preservation tax credits, which means all the work will meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And we think we can get about 13 units in that building. The football building would probably remain as office use, and the parking lot behind them would be a little bit modified a little bit so that we think we can get about 36 parking spaces in there. That should be plenty of parking for daytime use by the office and nighttime and weekend use by the occupants of the bar, what we call the Barbell Building, or the former children's home.
I think what confused the Board of Adjustment is they don't have issues with what we call the big building and the football building. I think they understand that. They didn't understand the recommendation that there needed to be single-family homes on those other 2 lots and 2 lots. And the reason we're back here is because I feel very strongly that we need a product in the neighborhood that we don't have much of, and that's flats. And we could build a big 2-story house on both of those sites. But we have big 2-story houses in Heritage Hills and Nesta Park. And we don't have much of a condo product in the neighborhood. And so to us, this was an opportunity to build some flats that would be sold as owner-occupied. And so last meeting, with the lack of information for you all and trying to get something done, I felt like maybe we could talk about this some more on. We're not wanting to build anything bigger on those lots than we would build if it was a house. We're trying to stay in the scale of what surrounds that. We just want a different use for those buildings and for them to be condo flats. And so I never really felt like maybe I made that point very clear the last time we talked about this. So that's why I asked if we could revisit this.
And I was just going to add, because we've seen lots of SPUDs where they're completely changing the zoning and maybe not taking it out of HP or HL, that a special exception is different from that. It's purely asking to change the use, and it would still remain within the historic district, and any future work, both to the existing buildings or to the vacant sites, is going to come back through this commission for review, just like any other project that you all see.
So let's say multifamily, now it's got special use permit, is that what's called?
Special exception.
Come back with a proposed project, and we don't like the scale of it. We can comment and we could say whatever. Okay.
We don't want to do a SPUD.
I think I brought that up.
Right, well, and that wasn't. It was because, as you know, we spend a lot of quality time with you all the first Wednesday of every month, and we believe wholeheartedly in the ordinance and its purpose, and we want this to be in HP, and we want you to enforce it being in HP, but we just want to introduce a type of property that most of the neighborhoods don't have. I think Crown Heights has seen Crown 7 in the last year or so, and it's been extremely successful. And I think we all know that 2-story houses, sometimes the fun wears off after a while, and it might be nice to have a 1-story instead of a 2-story, and we want to offer that to some of our residents to be able to stay in the neighborhood, or maybe bring in people that don't want a 3,000 square foot house but might love a 1,200 square foot house. And so,
I like what you're saying, but I think there's just concern, especially some people that wrote letters to us, that, yeah, it sounds great, but in the future, what's to keep it from becoming denser? Is there a limit on the density in the special?
The special exception itself just says multifamily. I think that is something that the Board of Adjustment is able to do if they wanted to specify multifamily up to a limit, and that's something the Commission could certainly reference as well.
I think that's a concern.
I apologize that I wasn't here last time. This is an urban setting. It's the middle of the city, and so I think a certain level of density is appropriate and should be expected. This is also a very unique site, unique parcel, unique block, and so I really don't see much of an issue or problem with it. I think that's appropriate.
And something that was brought up last time was the proliferation of on-street parking. And it seems to me, with just these renderings, there's going to be plenty of parking. And again, this is an urban setting, so you are still going to have on-street parking.
You're required for every unit to have a certain number of off-street parking spaces. That's part of the zone.
Right.
So I'm just kind of thinking it through, what could possibly go wrong.
Marva, I'm looking at the football building, and then we have, tell me what is right next to that. That's an existing building, right?
the building to the east of the football building
Yes.
is a
That's not-
proposed building.
That's a proposed building. Is that the condo, or the next one to the right is a condo?
The one to the right of the football building are two condo flats. The building to the right of that is an existing bungalow, and then the other new building is the one on the far left next to the. Why it's a little hard to maybe know what's there is Sunbeam has a lot of that fenced now for parking lots. And so there really are lots there that could be structures.
Because I was just confused because I wasn't sure that was the existing home on the corner.
On the very, very corner, it is an existing.
Because that particular owner was here last time and
I think
asked
she's
about,
here today.
the two lots and how nice it was to have her own private green belt there. So I think it should be utilized for something, and condos would be a great idea.
So that is a single-family home on the corner. That would be the northeast corner of the block.
It is.
And then immediately to the south of that, is that another dwelling?
It is, that faces Dewey.
Dewey, yes. So those two lots already have two residences on them.
They do.
Today, right.
No garage on that one?
I think looks like they both have a.
Sure.
One enters off of Dewey and the other enters off of the numbered street.
And it's kind of
there it is.
peculiar
I see it.
because if you look at page 2, the conceptual east elevation, you'll see that one of those structures actually has, it looks like a colonnaded thing kind of in the middle, and that's actually covered parking. There's like a dwelling up above or some structure up above, and then parking slides in. We kind of like that idea, but we'll see what comes out when we actually go through the design phase. Also, I think it's interesting because the north and south elevations are, of course, the fronts of the block, and then the east and the west elevations, you see the dip in construction there because there was an alley that's been vacated, so you can see that kind of vacancy there, that gap.
And then, Marva, the existing other buildings that are on 20th Street,
Yes, sir.
would they be retrofitted and all of that also?
Ken and Catherine have worked some on that. Our thought right now is that those will look much more like airplane bungalows than what they look like right now, which are large flat group homes that were built in the early 70s. And so we'll be coming back with those.
You mentioned that. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
And our plan is to make those into family homes and hopefully people who want to send their kids to Wilson would have that opportunity to buy a home, a half a block away,
And walk to Wilson
or
School.
walk to Wilson.
I wonder if there's anyone that would like to speak
Yeah.
for or against us from Mesta.
Shannon Rundle, 431 Northwest 20th, and I live basically 2 blocks from this property and have for years. I live 1 block from the group homes that have been on 20th for years, and I think this is such a step forward. Sunbeam was a good neighbor in terms of they did mow their yard and keep their property, but it was basically always a lot of people. And the group homes, sometimes on 20th, just a block from me, had 8 or 10 people in each one of the houses. And then the large building had a lot of office, and, right now there's a tremendous amount of parking on 21st because of Sunbeam's activity. So this is really pulling back and making it much more neighborhood friendly. And our section of, actually, in Heritage Hills, George knows, but in the block just next to me, 3 houses from my house, there is an 8-plex, there's a duplex, there's a 4-plex, there's another 4-plex. We have a lot more units right there a half a block from me than this is going to produce. And these, I think it's really important that several of these, 8 I think I counted, are going to be sold and be condominiums. I think there is a need for that. I said to Leslie Batchelor when she was here, that was her father that wants to get a ground floor bedroom, and I had to do that at my house. I think these condominiums are going to be perfect for people in the neighborhoods that want to stay in the neighborhood but maybe own something and not necessarily rent, although people may rent. But anyway, I think you all will have certainly say in the design going forward. But to me, it's really bringing back the problems with cars and lots of people in the neighborhood. It's not moving that forward. So I'm very much a supporter.
When you say bringing back, you meant reducing, right?
In terms of numbers of people, there are only 13 apartments in that big building and just 5 condominiums. And where the group homes, had 8 or 10 people in them, those are going to be single family. And so they're not going to be nearly as many people active in this neighborhood with this project as are there now and have been in the past.
I have a couple of clients that live across the street from these other group homes, and I saw them last week, and I asked about the density issue, and they had absolutely no problem with that. They really didn't.
Anybody else like to speak?
I just had something quickly. George, this is kind of putting you on the spot, but I know there was concern at the last meeting by some of the residents on that block that the rental units will bring down the value of the single-family homes. Do you see that in your experience with real estate?
No, and I'd like Shannon to speak to that too. No, I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I live 3 houses from an 8-plex.
Okay, so we have another speaker. Hello?
Good afternoon. My name's Sherry Helsel, and I live at 609 Northwest 21st. I'm across the street from the closest portion of the property is what they're calling the football building, and that's the closest portion to me. There is a drive that goes between the football building and what used to be the group home, where the traffic from the proposed parking will be, and where the cottages that house multiple people is now. Although it's my understanding that apparently the cottages were really kind of geared more to senior emergency housing through Sunbeam, and there's not a huge amount of traffic generated by that, and I see most of it because if they're coming and going at night, I get their headlights in my living room. So there's not a whole lot that goes through there now. But with the proposal between the group home, the units that are going to be there, the multiple units in the football building, and now proposing making 2 more structures, multifamily, you're talking about a potential for another, 36, 37 vehicles to be right there in that one little area. The other thing is between the rentals and the multifamily, those of us who are, single-family homeowners, there's only 9 of us as it is, and making additional multifamily there just increases that density and makes it more difficult for us to come and go. The property was historically, I know on one end, a single-family home, and then apparently there was no precedent for the vacant lot. There was nothing there. And I think what some of my neighbors and I know you guys received some other opposition other than mine, and I think, what we would like to see is if there's already going to be an additional 13 units in what used to be the dormitories, and then an additional 2 in the football building, why not reduce that density a little bit and make those 2 in-structure single-family homes?
I had one comment listening to you and looking at the diagram. I was wondering if there could be a second access point to the parking from the west. We might relieve that one point onto...
Alan, there's about a 3.5-foot elevation change between the parking lot behind the main structure and Dewey.
That's on the west, Dewey?
Yes, and Lee is to the west, and so we don't think we can finagle that to come out that way. We have been exploring that some to figure out if we can, but I think Floyd has some numbers he'd like to give you, though, on the traffic that the current Sunbeam contributes. And I want to correct one statement. The group homes on 20th will be parking off of 20th. They're not going to be coming off 21st anymore. So we're going to establish parking for them on 20th.
Floyd Simon, 900 Northwest 16th. I work with Marva on this. There's currently 21 employees in the big building for 21 offices, and there's 27 employees, I believe, for 19 or 20 offices that they have. They've got people kind of doubled up in a few offices, and they see people all throughout the day. I don't know what time they stop in the big building, in the football for the services that they provide. So there will be a significant downgrade in actual traffic that comes to and from that area in between those structures. Like I said, there's 13 proposed units, 7 one-bedrooms, 6 two-bedrooms. So I think there's 18 total bedrooms if you add up all of them. We have at least 22 or 23 parking spots for those, along with another, I think, 10 to 15 for the football building.
How many total?
What?
How many total?
Well, there's 33 right now, but we can redesign it, probably get 42 behind there. And that's not counting the east and west lots. That's basically what you guys have. If you count those up, I think there's 42 or 4. No, there's 48 or 46 in there.
48 parking spots on that?
Yeah.
Really? Doesn't look like that.
Does that count the proposed spaces for the new buildings as well?
No, those have their own. There's 4 for the 2 condo, and on the Lee side, the 3 unit, there's 6.
I hear your concerns. It seems to me that what you're worried about is perhaps not something that's going to happen, especially with the parking. Seems like they have really thought that out, and there's going to be additional parking spaces and less people. back to the fact that this is an urban inner city neighborhood, density is what is meant to be here. I would move that we recommend approval.
We might check if anyone else was waiting to speak. We
Yeah,
still have
any
quite a
more-
few people in the audience.
Any more speakers who'd like to speak?
May I add one thing to that? The traffic that he's talking about that exists now is 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and does not include large moving trucks and things like that coming and going at all times of the day and night. So there is a little bit of difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that a motion? Oh, somebody else.
I'm Jacqueline Fox. I'm an owner and operator of the Vintage at Mesta Park, and it's located at 500 and 510 Northwest 21st Street. So I'm literally 5 houses, single-family residence, and a small street away from this project. And I'm very excited about what's happening in the neighborhood because I bought in 2007. And I'm very excited to see that Sonic Corporation has donated the care of the landscaping for Wilson School. And I'm also excited about this development going in because it's going to raise the value of the neighborhood. I also have 36 units in my 2 properties. Excuse me, I have to take a breath. I have 36 units in those 2 properties. And of those 36 units, I'm 90% occupied. The moving and coming and going of tenants is very quiet. The neighborhood is it's just very quiet and calm. Wilson School has the traffic directed so it doesn't interrupt any of my tenants coming and going. As far as the people that are moving in and out, it's never been an issue. They come quietly, they move during the day. They move in, they move out during the day. So I'm just very excited about this project and hope it goes through. I'm also excited about the fact that it is an inner city urban neighborhood, and the single story residents that are being proposed, I'm excited about that because there's a lot of baby boomers that are downsizing and they want to move to cities. And I just see that as an opportunity for Oklahoma City to grow. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Will there still be no parking on the north side,
We have a motion.
the south side of 21st Street? There's no parking along that side, correct? I think that's a real plus
That's correct,
for
and
the
we have
owners
no
on
intention.
21st Street.
Right. There's no parking on the south side of 21st Street. It's prohibited by signs, and we have no intention of changing that.
I think that would be a help.
Okay, so we've got a motion.
Then I recommend approval to the Board of Adjustment for the special exception request regarding BOA 13868.
Do we want,
Second.
since they asked for clarification before, do we want any additional findings about why they should?
Right.
You don't have to, since
What's
you're just
changed?
doing straight approval, but
So I think maybe a finding would be that the urban setting of the neighborhood makes introduction of multifamily appropriate and not unheard of in this neighborhood already. I don't think we need anything else.
Second.
I would second that.
Okay. It's been so moved by Neela Crank Clements and seconded by Jeffrey Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you. Is that it?
communications and reports, we have a very long list of administrative approvals. Happy to answer questions about those, or you can certainly contact staff later.
Well, you do.
Had one withdrawal and then one item administratively closed for lack of forward motion. City Council, the SPUD 747 at 100 Northwest 22nd Street, which the commission reviewed. This was a proposal to do a medical facility on those 2 vacant lots. The recommendation from Historic Preservation Commission, let me see, we recommended denial, Planning Commission has recommended denial, and it will go to City Council on April 15th.
So, but it still gets to go before council, though, even though it's had a denial,
Yep.
recommended denial.
Yep.
And they're still going forward. They didn't change their mind.
I thought they
As
went.
far as I know, they're still.
I thought they went to court. I didn't think they went to council anymore.
Not on this kind. They go to council, and then if they don't get the relief they seek, then they go straight from council to court.
All right.
And then the other SPUD that we've reviewed recently, which was abutting Jefferson Park, but not actually in a historic district, also had a recommended denial from Planning Commission and has not yet been scheduled for City Council, but that will eventually go. 216 Northwest 16th Street, the property at which we just approved construction of a new garage, is scheduled to go before Board of Adjustment to appeal our decision on their previous application, which was virtually identical to this. I am assuming that they will withdraw that appeal since they've just gotten approved to do what they wanted. And then the special exception that we just heard will go to Board of Adjustment tomorrow.
Okay.
Then, final thing that I'll note, our proposed amendments to the Historic Preservation Ordinance were recommended for approval by Planning Commission, or no, I'm sorry, they were recommended for introduction to Planning Commission on March 27th, and from that meeting, the recommendation would be to go to City Council on April 10th. Ordinance changes are a very lengthy process, as I'm sure some of you remember from the green guidelines before, so it goes to Planning Commission twice, it'll go to City Council 3 times.
Wow.
So by the time all of you are off the commission, we'll have
Plenty of opportunity. Is this anything from the municipal councilor? No. Next meeting date, May 7th. Workshop, May 14th, 11:30, 420 West Main. Okay, anything from commissioners, and the citizens are all gone? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Jeffrey Parker. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.